Hello everyone, welcome to the MetaMorphosis podcast. I'm your host Milan and this is Jasmina. Hello Jasmina.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Well, among other things, and in the range of topics that we're going to cover today, we just go as we are. You and I met under very interesting circumstances, and we have come often to discuss intersexual dynamics, how men and women are, how they communicate with each other, how they are with each other. And in our journey of discovering that, in discovering human nature, how men and women emote, we've come to understand some really interesting truths, I would say.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
To say the least, yeah, we have. First of all, it was a very interesting meeting, and that meeting became the groundwork for how the conversation evolved, I think. Yeah.
Could you tell me what you perceive to be the most, let's say, maybe as you would call it, like tectonic movement within you? What was the biggest realization you had in our conversations and interaction? Well,
I cannot point out one single thing. I think everything that I thought I was, or the person I thought I was, has slowly developed and changed throughout our knowing each other. And it's like my worldview in a sense shattered. Not completely, not in a, well, at first I perceived it as a negative.
Right,
like,
right.
I was devastated, like, what, how can this be possible? No, this cannot be. And you remember how many times I was like, nope, I don't want to know this. Like, no, this is not true.
So the first response, forgive me for interrupting you, it was basically denial, in a sense.
You could call it denial.
Right.
You could call it denial, but not completely, because I understand there must be some grain of truth in that. So that encouraged my own research to dive deeper into this, because prior to us meeting, I had been, researching intersexual dynamics, relationships, polarity, how men and women interact. But this gave a whole new dimension to it, which I was not aware of. So yeah, I had to rearrange everything I thought I knew, and to question that, and to research that, and dive deeper into it. And so denial would not be the right word. I would rather I would say it was
resistance.
Yes. Yes.
Resistance. So in that sense, or having said that, like, what would that be resistance towards? Because I can also notice that in myself, that because if we're discussing red pill,
yeah, and
that red pill, for anyone who is listening, is simply just one way of interpreting reality, mm-hmm. but not de facto reality. Mm-hmm. So it's here is this truth, but truth is something for us to discover individually, yeah, through our own lens, through our own experience, research, relationship. Mm. But when we were speaking, you and I, and when we were actually tackling on these deeper issues, the main, I would say, one of the most, the biggest obstacles, I would say, was how men and women are in relationship.
With each other.
Mm-hmm. And I think the most important thing to say before going deeper into that is that everything is relationship, if you would agree with me.
Definitely.
So in the sense that relationship would be relationship to your dog, relationship to your clothes, to yourself, to your books, to your mother, to everything that you can possibly think of. Mm-hmm. And that your relationship with your, I don't like the word partner, so I'm going to say,
Why don't you like that word?
Because it is exactly what, and I'm going to be very blunt by saying this, it is in accordance with the gynocentric agenda and femme-centric movement, which kind of aims to completely equalize men and women instead of observing them as polarities and as opposites.
Exactly.
So it's not putting men and women on equal pedestals, but to actually see what our not necessarily conventional or traditional roles are, but what we decide within the relationship. Mm-hmm. Our roles are in accordance with our nature.
Yeah.
and in accordance to who we truly and genuinely are, and then seeing what we can build from that and in that space. So I don't like the word partner because it sounds very purely transactional.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when someone says, me and my partner, first of all, that's mostly coming from women. I rarely heard men say partner. And when I did, I mostly realized that those were men who were either very, very severely feminizedly brainwashed, like brainwashed by feminism, highly feminine men, or men that simply did not have authority in the relationship or over their own lives. And what I mean by that more specifically is that there are men who have simply not tapped into their masculine essence and potential enough to appreciate themselves enough to know their role, to know what it means to be a man, and to discover what it means to be a man in a relationship with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that? How would you perceive yourself as a woman in a relationship to a man?
How I would perceive myself as a woman.
Or how are you?
How I am?
Yeah.
Well, you tell me. Okay. That takes into consideration a deep observance of oneself.
Agreed.
I like to say, like, know thyself before you can know thy other. Being a modern day philosopher and writer, well, internal joke, but know thyself enough and observe thyself in all of your relationships with friends, family, men. I want to say partner now. See? Right. So it's so deeply encoded. Yes, it is per default. And that's, for example, that's one of the things that I realized, like, I use that word.
Yes.
But when we had that discussion about when I use that word, like partnership,
right,
we did not have the same connotation.
Absolutely not.
We did not have the same meaning attached to that word.
No.
And if we were not to dissect that, okay, what does that mean to me? And what does that mean to you? There would have already been a miscommunication.
Exactly, because the word is not the thing. And when you say partner, and when I say partner, those are two completely different things.
Exactly.
And that is why it's important. We hit the nail on the head here. So we basically said, because we cannot perceive reality through the same lens, because we are inherently different, men and women. So because to a woman, a man has a certain ability, role, image, and also essence of how she views the man in accordance with her perception, needs, experience, and whatnot. Yeah. And so do men. Yeah. So it will be a fallacy to call partnership a partnership and view people as egalitarian in each and every sense of it, because we do have our roles in society. Again, not saying each is better than the other, but one sex is better at some things and one sex is better than in other things, but it doesn't matter who's better.
It's complementary.
It's complementary. What's important is that we work together to utilize that and to not separate, but instead to acknowledge the differences and to then see what this is all about. Because what I witness today is plenty of women that I personally have interaction with. And as a man, I instantaneously lose interest when I hear a certain narrative. And that narrative is in accordance with what I would refer to the hookup culture. Mm-hmm. So just learning about the man through what is perceived. So if I don't see you as a man demonstrating certain things, asking questions, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like when women ask me, what do you do?
Oh God.
That is such a superficial.
Red flag.
Exactly. It is a red flag. It's an enormous red flag. Because again, don't forget that us men have a certain burden of performance. So if I'm a guy, if I'm an average Joe, and nothing wrong with being an average Joe, and if I'm asked by a woman, what do you do? And I'm a plumber, then if that girl hears that I'm a plumber, even though she doesn't know that plumbers make a lot of money, she will walk away, because women are conditioned and taught to aim for what we perceive and call high-value men, which are traditionally or conventionally perceived to have CEO positions, have cars, millions of dollars.
Oh, wow. Here is already a miscommunication between the languages of men and women.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but like,
no.
See, that's a part of the narrative where I was resist. In a sense, I still resist. No, I would not even say resist. I do not fully buy into that. And I will tell you why. Because you asked me, okay, how do I perceive myself as a woman in a relationship to a man, right? My view of myself in that has also changed.
Yeah.
A lot of that thanks to our conversations and our interactions. Learning, but really learning by being in it. This is not something I could read. This is not something I could watch on YouTube or take take this 5-week course and change your life, change your relationship, catch the man, whatever. All these
dating coaches.
We have so much material for podcasts here.
Yes.
But yes, in essence, yes, because that is selling a formula for
exactly.
This is how you do a relationship, and this is how you quote unquote catch the man. No, you do not want to catch a man. That is not what it's about. But in this, what you said, hookup culture, I call it like fast food or Tinder society, like swipe, or like the grass is greener just around the corner. So what I did learn, and I'm still learning, is that communication, but not just communication, comprehension. Because we can communicate as much as we want, right? But if we don't comprehend each other, we can communicate like infinitely, and thus miscommunicate.
And we have different styles of communication too.
Oh, that too. So learning how to coexist, and I mean that not in a negative connotation, but actually coexist and thrive together by actually understanding each other. How many times did I ask you why, how, what do you mean? How many times have you been perplexed and like, what? Where I had to, okay, this is how I feel, this is how I think, this is why I do this, this is my perception of the word partnership, for example.
Right.
So how I would perceive myself as a woman in a relationship is ever changing. I look at myself, like not necessarily in the mirror, but I take a deep look within myself, like, okay, wait, wow, this felt, what happened now? When you meet me with understanding, or curiosity rather, because you ask a lot of questions. And that's something I think that men and women, they don't ask each other a lot of questions because they assume. And I'm not saying this is the truth, but I can imagine it being a big part of the truth that, for example, women reading about, okay, this is how you, once again, I do not know why it caught my attention, but like catch the guy, get the guy, whatever, and that men are, they're not wanting to be in relationship with women, right? And it's a scarce species, right? The men who want to be in relationship.
Right. But why do you think men don't want to be in relationships with women?
Oh, I did not say that.
Okay.
But if you ask me the question, like on the top of my mind, like knee-jerk answer would be miscommunication, because men and women inherently do not understand each other and how to actually complement each other.
Okay. But if I were to ask you directly, because again, I respect the answer because it's a general answer, but why do you think, what is your perception as a woman? Like, why would a man refuse to be with a woman in a committed relationship?
Oh, how much time do we have?
A lot. just go wild.
Okay, firstly, it would be to generalize. I'm having a hard time generalizing to say all women, all men, most women, most men.
For sure.
I believe that just tying the thing together by saying polarity, and that I think women, because I am a woman, and this is like where I'm coming from, right?
Okay.
Have misunderstood certain things by society being, you said hookup culture, so I'm going to use that word.
Please do.
By
the way, there's no such thing.
Oh.
There's no such thing as hookup culture.
Oh,
so
okay.
we've just given it a name to justify human behavior, which is nothing but nature and human behavior. We've called it hookup culture to be able to compartmentalize and label it. But it is in essence human nature and the demonstration of human behavior, genuine human behavior.
Is it?
Yes, of course it is. You just give people the tools.
Okay.
So you give people easy access to sexuality. Mm-hmm. And don't forget, so if our mating strategies are different, for example, men wanting unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, and women wanting commitment, security, safety, parental investment and whatnot, then what you do on dating apps, for example, as women become more masculine, they enter more masculine roles, and they are the ones that are now wanting unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, which they ironically refer to as freedom and empowerment, but is in essence disempowerment, because their value is diminished through each and every sexual encounter with a man that doesn't commit to them.
You mentioned something there that I wanted to say when you asked me the question, that what I think women have misunderstood and by society being what it is today, because there's a lot of stressors, a lot of input, a lot of everything. You got to go to work, family, friends, this, phone rings, computer, emails, grocery shopping, go to the gym, work out, yoga, whatever. How many hours are there in a day, right? How much can a human being, first of all, not depending on the sex, the gender, the man, woman, whatnot, how much can a human being actually take on? Like, the human brain cannot actually process that much information being bombarded each moment.
And one way of coping with that is automating it, going an autopilot.
Oh yes, and that's what I think that most people do in general.
Exactly.
And what is being fed to us, right? Tinder, for example. I personally, I had Tinder way back, like a couple of years back. But it was, no. Just a simple no. Because what is that? You see a picture and you swipe. Who is this person? It does not say anything. It's advertising. Like, oh, this is me. I'm going to put like, oh, my best picture. And
you're selling yourself.
Thank you. You said it.
You're selling yourself, and everyone is, not you personally. Everyone is. I'm not even gonna go into down the rabbit hole of capitalism and consumer capitalism and stuff. But we have began to see each other as commodities and merchandise and objects. Yeah. And our relationships are becoming increasingly utilitarianistic rather than loving and reciprocal, naturally reciprocal. Yeah. And giving.
Exactly. And you mentioned something there when I said, okay, that's a miscommunication. Like, what did you say? Like high value men, like high income.
Right, right. Or, again, and that's, again, the failed perception of women on women's behalf of what a high value man is. He needs to have this and this and that. The things we hear on Fresh and Fit all the time. Like, what do these women want? They want a man that makes $500,000 a year, has his own place, has everything, and he's going to take care of me. What do I have to bring to the table? Myself.
Basically nothing then. And I'm not saying that people in and of themselves are nothing, because everybody has inherent value. Agreed. Everybody. We're born like that. And I do a lot of trauma-informed research. Early childhood, how that affects the nervous system, the brain, and how that then develops throughout our relationships, or actually is manifested in our relationships. And that's where I think my work and your work are extremely interesting when they complement each other. Because you look at the here and now, and I've been looking at, okay, what is the root cause? Where does this stem from? In general, in human behavior, but then also intersexually.
What would you say when you say that you go back in the past and I'm more here in the present? I mean, I agree. It's a very good dichotomy presented. How would you then say that if a person runs into a situation, and can we then say that they're entering a certain loop, that they're looping? Because if we don't heal a certain pattern in relationship, we'll tend to repeat it.
Well, okay, very, very simplified. I think it's called repetition compulsion or something like that. I'm not going to latch on to the word. I cannot remember it right now because I'm nervous and my prefrontal cortex shuts off. So I'm running on my amygdala and basal ganglia, like, so nervous. It's my first podcast, so bear with me.
You're doing great.
Thank you. I am extremely nervous. But yeah. Yes. So basically, if we do have a certain imprint when we're very, very young of, let's say, for example, what a lot of, in this case, women, if they would have a for example, an absent father. He's in the house, like parents living together, like whole family unit thing, right? But the father is working all the time, or he is disinterested. As we grow up as small children, our brains are in different waves, like theta waves. Like basically, we're under hypnosis up on the age of 8-ish. So the child would not, when you tell a child, oh, don't do that, or do this, or you're not hungry, you just ate, why are you crying? I'm going to give you something to cry about. Insert whatever you wish. The child hears this, yes, but the pre-verbal phase, the child does not understand language. So
it understands behavior.
Exactly. So the child
mimics.
Even in the womb, if the mother is stressed,
right.
the cortisol, it goes into
right.
to the fetus. So the child would then absorb these energies. And growing up, once again, father being absent, not interested, stressed out by society because, you gotta
perform.
You gotta perform. You gotta, make that money to pay the rent.
And this is exactly where we enter the fallacy of feminism that has actually caused women to do the same thing.
Oh, yes.
That has just pushed women, or rather they accepted that. This is a choice. This is not, you can also, it's a contract. So you can say, yes, like I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the man that I'm looking for.
Gosh.
I'm going to be the man that I'm looking for by going, looking for work, being a boss, boss B, not to say the word, just really being the best man I can be, the man I'm looking for. But what women don't understand, most women don't, but they're starting to, is their own essence and nature, which is hypergamy. So the more women actually leverage themselves, the more they become successful. The smaller the dating pool for them is, because they would want a man that is, and I'm using this word very cautiously, better than them. They want a man they can look up to. They want a man that can provide for them. They want a man who is basically someone whom they can respect. Not someone who demands respect, but someone worthy of her respect. And all this starts in the family.
Yeah.
All this starts in the family with the present father, present mother, both of them having a good, healthy relationship. And also, again, not attributing this to necessarily conventional roles, but you said it yourself. We know where the dad was sitting. If you have the dad in the house, you know where he sits, you know where his place is, you know where the mom is, and that's not necessarily a hierarchy. It's simply order.
Yeah.
It's order.
Yeah, every system has an order. So if the father was absent then, and in this case the girl, she's then seeking for her father's attention. There's a term called the Oedipus complex, and for small boys that would be the Electra complex. Like simplified, the girl wants to kill her mother and take her place, so her father would like to marry her father, basically to win his love. So what happens then if the father is absent and he's not providing quote unquote unconditional love and acceptance and giving this little girl the love, support, validation that a child, but in this case the girl, would in a perfect world need. I think nobody, even people who go under the umbrella term secure attachment styles are not fixed. They're mutable in a sense. You can have a secure attachment to co-workers or women, but maybe not to men or in certain situations. So that's very, very important that we state that it's not like, oh, I have an insecure attachment style. I'm anxiously attached or whatever. Interchangeable. And also you can work on that. But not having the presence of caregivers who can attune to the child. Nobody's perfect, but over time, so that child's nervous system becomes
attuned,
exactly, because a child cannot self-soothe. So
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's completely dependent upon, in this case, the parent to attune to them.
If you leave a child, I think, alone, if you leave a newborn alone for one day, it will die.
Yeah,
it will literally die. It needs affection. It needs love. It needs care. We are, we are the most vulnerable mammals in the world. Oh yes.
Oh yes.
And also you said one interesting thing, which is the absent father. And again, this is something that's often spoken about because we don't speak about absent mothers. We don't speak about what happens to the mother if the father is absent. Because as far as I'm concerned, as a man, the father is doing what he's conventionally conditioned to do.
Mm-hmm.
The father goes to work, provides for the family. But what do you think then the role of the woman would be in that to make that environment also enjoyable? What would the role of the woman be, and how can she help the man then actually enjoy that and not being absent from the child's life? Not that it's her responsibility and role, but how can she actually facilitate that? What can a woman do to facilitate that healthy relationship of the man? Because we speak about conventional roles and the unity, the difference between men and women and their complementarism.
Mm-hmm.
If indeed we have something that and I don't like this term, like the absent father, because again, that father is doing his best. My father is my hero. And my father did his absolute best and still is to keep our family together, to get the food on the table. I would never consider him absent, but I would say that, okay, he did his best, as we all do. But I would never blame him for any of my flaws or lack of my masculine connection with myself, although I understand the perception. And we have this fallacy in research, in media, how single mother homes are portrayed. They're not being, for example, we don't say single mother children, we say fatherless homes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also what you would refer to as NLP. There's also an aspect of neurolinguistic programming here, and how we approach absence of a parent in a relationship, in a child's life. So it's not just, I wouldn't necessarily even say single mothers, because then that does the same thing to single mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say a single mother, yada yada, insert whatever quote here, then the attention goes to just this woman.
Yeah.
Why I think that is important to speak about is, if indeed we say fatherless homes, let's then say single mother homes too, for the sake of equilibrium and discussing, okay, what is the man doing here? What is his responsibility? And what is the woman doing here that can be improved, so that both of them, so that we can learn, best practices and examples and seeing what this is actually about. What do you think about that?
Definitely. I think language is very important. How we speak, what we speak about, talk about with each other. Tell a lie 3 times and it becomes a truth. Conditioning. And we started off this conversation by having the connotation between so much information being bombarded at us at any point in time, and also dating culture, hookup culture, whatnot, Tinder, blah blah blah. It's conditioning, and that would also then too be conditioning, right? To say, well, fatherless homes,
exactly,
or single mother homes,
exactly,
or feminism in essence. Who can define exactly what that is and to whom? Unless you buy into a narrative about this is what feminism is, and you board that train.
How feminism started and how feminism is are completely 2 different things.
Oh, yes.
Because again, and I always say this thing when I speak to women, if you want equality, call it equality.
Mm-hmm.
Don't call it feminism. Because the message we receive as men is that this is literally female supremacy, not equality. And here is one key indicator of that. And I speak about this with women, and I always get an aggressive response. When I ask women about, can they then support equality across all fields? What do I mean by that? If women want, and they are encouraged to do so, to be CEOs and to gain positions of power,
mm-hmm.
will then they want to do hard work that men do?
Like what?
Like plumbing, like electricians, like artisan work, bricklaying, all the work in which men are at least 90% representative
mm-hmm.
of. Call them dirty work, call them heavy work that requires genuine muscle, work capacity, and something that is that men do predominantly for a reason mm-hmm. that is biological, rather than any other. So if women want equality, don't you think then that equality would have to be encompassed in all areas of society and economy?
Well, what is the meaning of the word equality, right?
No, of course. But this is about work, because women want to be represented in work and they want equality. But they refuse to work jobs that men are predominantly at because they are afraid of competition then.
Wow. So, okay. To say that women refuse that, it's a strong statement. I'm not saying it's not true or it's true. Certainly there are women who are plumbers, who are electricians, who are doing all of these things. But one thing is a fact that we cannot look away from or shy away from, actually. And this is, in a sense, this is where we start to move towards like dangerous areas of discussion. Whereas, okay, most women are not as physically strong as men because we are biologically different. So as a woman, let's say you and I want to be firefighters, and you need to be able to lift or bust in a door that's like 50 kilos. Or
Remember
whatever.
that video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And based upon that, like, okay, I want to be a firefighter. And that if that's my lifelong dream, well, then I need to do certain things. I need to go like to the gym and like,
You need to carry a man.
I need to be able to carry
An 80-kilo man out of a burning building.
Yes, because that is, I mean, I would not want to be in that burning building if, I'm not saying that women should not go and be firefighters. Like,
Of course.
Girls, if that's what you want to do, make sure you're able to do it in any case. And that goes for men as well. Like,
exactly.
But the thing is, like, if in this case, this type of work, which requires physical strength.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Then equality means equality for both sexes.
And equality in terms of here, this is the norm and this is the bar.
Yes.
And we don't set the bar lower so that women can enter this too.
No. Like, if you want to, what is the English term for that? To quote in like women and, there's a term for this. Like, if in corporate, say, if there are 90% men.
Quota.
A quota.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
To quote in like women.
Yes.
These women need to be
competent,
equally
exactly.
as competent.
Exactly.
Not just to put a woman in there just because she's a woman, nor would the same apply to men if that were the case.
Exactly. So imagine how men would feel then, because we feel like that already. Imagine me working like something for 10 years, being in corporate world, whatnot, and then all of a sudden my job gets jeopardized because a woman who hasn't even done that for 2 years comes and she gets the job because she's a woman.
Yeah. No.
And then that also tells a lot about the company. And this kind of like the entire wokeism and woke movement, social justice crap is really, really getting on my nerves, because as a man, I see this and I don't like it, because as a man who has his own business, I want people that are competent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about any aspect of their existence per se. I care about them getting the job done.
Mm-hmm.
So that, because what matters to me is that you are a competent person, you're the right person for this job. Whether you're a man or a woman, that matters nothing to me. And the key, you said it very nicely, it's competence, and it's what competence means in a certain area.
Yeah.
For example, what happens in the US now, and this is a scandal in the US, is that people are lowering the entry requirements for military to accommodate and suit women. So I'm not shaming women, I'm not spitting on women by saying this. I'm simply saying that how far are we going to go with this instead of learning to embrace that we simply have maybe different natures. I'm not saying women shouldn't go to war, learn how to handle weapons, simply be. But to compete with men, that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
Because if you want to compete with men, you compete with men as equals.
Yeah.
You go, I'm a woman, I compete with you. I'm a woman, I weigh 50 kilos, and I'm 170 centimeters tall, and I'm going to compete with a 2-meter tall guy who weighs 120 kilos.
Exactly.
That's equality.
Yeah, but I think that this whole general conversation about feminism and equality and women's rights and so forth, it stems back from the patriarchy, right? And how many women see it is that they are, in a sense, still. I'm very cautious about using the word suppressed, but women have been, in a sense of, for example, being able to vote. That's one example. Or having the even the possibility to work. And I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong. Like my opinions here do not matter in a sense, because if
it's still welcome.
Yeah, but if I learn something new, I love to learn anew and to see like, oh, new information. How does this add up to what I already know, what I have experienced, how I perceive the world? I would not say that women are in essence suppressed, not at least here in the Western world. But what I do think is that this general conversation has kind of taken not a wrong turn, but it's, what is it really about? Like, what is it really about? So when I hear women say, oh, F all men. Why?
They even say kill all men.
Oh gosh. I don't want to use there's strong words. And it's actually very scary.
Yeah, because it's becoming violence.
Oh, yes.
It's intersexual violence.
Yeah, see, and instead of coming together, it's an even deeper polarization.
Yes.
Because it's, okay, equal rights in a sense as human rights. Equal rights as humans. Women, men, humans, equal rights. But then we need to be very cautious about not taking this too far. And, well, in my humble opinion, it's gone a bit too far in certain areas. And when these discussions and topics come up, I, as a woman, sometimes get scared of actually talking to other women.
Right.
How I see things. Because I don't necessarily deem myself as feminist.
Or standing for some movement or having a stand. It's just you as a woman are afraid of voicing your opinion as a woman.
Yeah, because I get questioned, I get
ostracized.
Yeah. Then I need to defend, you're defending men. Once again, the word, the spelling, the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes.
The
division between us and men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Us versus them. And that is where I come back to what I've been doing for so many years, to see, like, where do we actually come together? What ties us together as humans? And how can we overlap the, I would say, polarization gap? Because it's increasing by the day.
Yes.
Like, it's a Grand Canyon each day, more and more.
I would really love to know more, and if you're willing to share about your involvement in the corporate world and how that looked for you. But before that, I want to comment on something that you said, which I find really important, which is the women voting. And we had this conversation. I would really, really gladly like to go back to it. So I'm not representing any opinion or school of thought, but I happen to know that the reason women were not allowed to vote is because simply women were seen as ones that remain in the household. So the man is the sole owner of either property or whatnot, and a woman, and I'm using this word very carefully because I don't like it at all, a woman was in a sense viewed as property, not property as objectified entity, whatnot, or owned by the man, but the woman, by the very nature of accepting a marriage with a man, she leaves her family, and then she enters the man's household. They now live together. She takes his last name, and basically he is running the business or running the family. In the US, the majority of spending power is held by women. So women are the ones spending most in the US. So it's not men who spend the most. Men are holding the money. Men are earning the money. But women are the ones spending it. Because what is done, and again, back to 60s and before that, before the sexual revolution, they live together. But women, by the very right of being with their men and them having a stable union and relationship, they use the wealth that they built together. And that wealth will normally be built by a man, while the woman is either taking care of children, which doesn't mean she shouldn't have her own life. Apart from that, that is her life. But the reason, or one of the reasons, correlation and not causation, for women not voting is exactly because they did not contribute to the economy to the extent that it would actually allow them to make decisions regarding that same thing. Because they were spenders. They were much more than that, of course. But they would spend their men's money, and their men will be the ones earning it. Which doesn't mean women are not competent, which doesn't mean that women should not do the same thing that men are. But the reason that women were not allowed to vote, partially, was owing to that, to their position in the family, to them simply not being interested in that, not being interested in the affairs of the world, not being interested in politics, not being interested in what happens with the country. Because women, let's be honest with this one, women are not going to go to war when there's a war coming. It's men who go to war.
Is it so because of conditioning, or because we actually know that for a fact that women do not want to go to war?
Do you want to go to war? Would you defend this country if a war comes?
Well, would you ask me 15 years ago? I would say
No,
definitely
no, but
yes.
I'm asking you now.
Oh, now? No.
No, exactly.
No.
Exactly. So it's not, and again, for us men, it's not a choice. And this is where we go into the even deeper discussion of the state and how we are, to a very, very deep degree manipulated and controlled by the state. Because to us men, we're not even granted that choice in most of the cases. If a war happens, you are a man, you stay here. We take Ukraine, for example. If I'm not mistaken, 60,000 men were not allowed to come back. They were told, stay here, here are arms, here are weapons, defend this country, while women and children are sent to evacuate.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this because we are that tribal. Our conventional roles still remain. Us men take up arms and we defend. And we want women and children to survive. We want to defend them instinctively.
Well, you said a lot of things.
I have the tendency of doing
as you
that.
usually do. And I thought I was the one talking much. No, joking. Biology and evolution. How do those two intertwine and separate? Because we're talking about, you said, okay, women were seen as not proud to use this word, like property in a sense, yes. But if we go even further back to when we lived in tribes,
Yeah.
that wasn't the case. So, in a sense, evolution has also formed how we perceive society today.
Right.
And to use a argument of, oh, this was what it looked like 100 years ago. Well, what did society look? What was society like 100 years ago? And up until this point, this brief breath of a moment in time where we're too comfortable for our own good. Once again, speaking of the westernized world, right? We have literally everything we could ever imagine and even more.
Yes.
So we make, okay, this definitely is one not so humble opinion, but we make up problems.
Of course, because we have that luxury.
We have that luxury. If we did not have that, which most people did not have 100 years ago, 50 years ago, okay, ish, things were different. So let's say we're a family, you need to go to work as a man because otherwise we will not have food on the table. So how do we complement each other? I, as a woman, then, if we have children, I'm home with the children to take care of. It's an equilibrium in a sense.
And it's your nature.
Yes.
Because even in tribes, you mentioned tribes.
Yeah.
We knew who were hunter-gatherers. Mm-hmm. We knew who was out there to defend, hunt, organize, provide, and who was there to nurture, caretake.
Yes. So going back to biology versus evolution and then evolutionary biology, in a sense, I don't agree nor disagree with you. But I also believe that, okay, if men are physically stronger, most often not as emotionally volatile, not volatile as in chaotic, but most women... Hormonal, exactly. Most women, we have our cycle, we have our periods, and the women who don't, who are on contraceptives and such, still have their... See, so much content. Like this could also that could be a podcast episode on its own.
We'll have a discussion on this too, like women and contraceptives.
Oh gosh, write that down.
Oh, it already done.
But the hormonal cycle is still, in a sense, active in the background. We cannot deny our biology, and then again, once again, we're speaking about men and women, and maybe there's somebody listening out there who's like defines themselves as some other gender, or I'm not commenting on that, like, just to make things clear, because that is also an area where I need to learn more to be able to say something around that. But just to keep it very simple, men who identify as men, women who identify as women, as sexes, as genders, because sex and gender do not necessarily need to be the same thing.
Please elaborate.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, you made a statement. And
Yeah.
you said sex and gender doesn't necessarily have to be the
Well,
same thing.
You know as well as I do that there are people who are born as a woman or a man,
Mm-hmm.
and who identify as the opposite gender or as something in between or something else. And who am I to say, like, no, you're not allowed to do that?
So you said you heard of gender dysmorphia.
Yes, I have.
Do you still think, and we'll keep this brief because I would love to have a separate discussion, because I think this is a topic that deserves a discussion of its own. So do you think that you can choose your gender?
I think as sovereign human beings, we're in the luxury life right now where we have more than enough, and we have it too good that, yeah, we're able to choose whatever we want and live in that world view perception. But at the same time, if somebody chooses to eat at McDonald's every day, or fast food, or...
Right. But is belief then reality?
That is a very discussable topic. What is belief?
No, but I'm asking you, like, is belief reality? If I believe I'm a unicorn, am I a unicorn?
We would need to ask that person who believes they're a unicorn.
Ask them what?
If they're them being a unicorn is real for them.
Okay.
Because, in a sense, by invalidating them being a unicorn, I don't know how to politically correct express myself, but by validating that, and then like, oh yeah, you see me, you hear me, you validate my existence, then you can enter the discussion or the conversation with that person and say, like, okay, where does this belief stem from? How do you perceive reality? By approaching this perceived person X who thinks they're a unicorn, by saying, oh no, you're not a unicorn, you're mentally ill. Why divide people into...
I'm not saying that, because this is a belief that is separate from reality. If you see a human being that is just like you, perhaps you perceive a person that is just like you, they cannot be a unicorn, can they?
No, they're a human being.
Okay, so then why do we need to validate people who say that they are what they think they are?
We don't need to do anything.
Okay.
But if we want to learn about that unicorn/human's perception of reality and their beliefs, I believe, well, that's a belief I hold, right? But the most correct approach, in a sense, would be like, okay, hey, unicorn, I see you.
Okay.
What's up?
So do I need to do that with every person that I meet and who considers themselves to be something other than what I perceive them to be, which is also grounded in reality?
Nobody sees what you see, even if they see it too.
Oh, absolutely not. That's why relationships are so important.
Exactly.
But we still, in relationship, cannot ignore objective reality.
No.
Truth, which is only one.
Well, you could argue that. But if you ask another person what their truth is...
But you just said that there is one truth.
Yes.
So how can then you mention someone else's truth?
Well, if they don't see and perceive the same reality as you do.
Okay.
Let's say.
So we took a little break to readjust here. So again, before I move on, because I know this might be a challenging topic, but again, do you believe that objective reality, truth, is something that can be separated from an individual truth? What is a woman to you and what is a man to you?
If it can be separated, not completely. They cannot be completely divorced, because a person's own truth, like when somebody says, this is my truth, in essence somehow needs to be, it doesn't need to be, but could be anchored into what is actually true. This is a microphone. But if I believe this to be, well, you said unicorn. Oh, I see a unicorn here. And if that makes my life better and does not impose on anybody else's peace, freedom, life, whatever, what does it matter then?
It does, because we learn through example and behavior. So if I have a child that...
Wouldn't that be conditioning then as well?
What would be conditioning?
Well, we learn by example and behavior, right? So if we say this is truth, this is a microphone, this is a microphone. And
Right.
what if this is not a microphone, but we are being told like this is a microphone all the time?
Do you and I agree that's a microphone?
Oh, yes.
That's truth.
Yes.
So that's how
This was just an example, but
Of course, but it was a perfect example. So do we agree that's a microphone?
Yes.
Yes. And if we disagree on it, then we need to understand that. Not with a mind that has conclusions, that knows what it is or isn't. But do we agree? Like there's a click, there's a moment of alignment within you that's unquestionable. Because truth simply is.
Yeah.
Truth is not something you can make up.
no.
So how would you then not define, what is a woman to you and what is a man in that sense?
What is a woman? Well, I'm a woman.
Okay. Okay. So how would then a woman be different than what you described as someone who doesn't know what their gender is? Or identifies with a different gender? And what would that gender be? Take 3.
It's my first time. Bear with me.
What is a woman?
What is a woman? Well, my instinct, like, oh, that's a deep question, because... No, not even my instinct. That was not true, because I wanted to rationalize this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I see. I just caught myself.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens, and we began this conversation. But
Yes.
how did I learn
Yes.
about myself and relationships with, or by interacting with you? And this is an example in real time, because I know you're looking at me like. What comes to me, like if I feel into it, okay, I'm a woman. I perceive myself as a woman. I identify as a woman. And not just to state a answer that is preconceived or something I've heard or adopted as my own. My answer would be womb.
Okay.
But that's a highly personal answer, and that's what I'm going to say, like womb. And by that I mean a person who gives birth to life.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
your essence.
Yeah. That resonates completely true in my body.
Yeah.
Without
And
having to.
And thank you for that, because that is the answer that I heard most people avoiding. Because when you heard of Matt Walsh, What is a Woman documentary?
No.
Oh, I can't wait to show that to you. So this is exactly the point of it, because there are people who are advocating for human rights, for the rights of the LGBTQI community, which I personally have nothing against. But it's simply the main problem here is that when when our population, certain population of mankind is asked to define or perceptually elaborate what a woman is, that is impossible. And I'm happy that you did that.
How do you mean impossible?
Well, they get offended and they get confused when they're asked this question. So when the question comes, which is what is a woman, women say, well, I don't need to tell you that. That's my business. That's personal. That's private. But instead, that's something that we perceive and understand together. So
how is that like private?
Well, again, because then identity or what a person believes is something that he or she is attached to. So if I challenge a belief, that somehow becomes private and uncomfortable to discuss. That's why people refuse to speak about these things, because there is an ego-invested belief. And in order for that ego-invested belief, therefore ego, to survive and sustain itself, it needs to be kept from the truth.
Oh, okay. Once again, the ego, perception, the mind, what is consciousness, add to that conditioning. There are not infinite, but close to an infinite of layers to this.
Yep.
And that's why I could say, like, okay, for me, personally, that is the answer that most resonates within my body, which is like what I say, like full body.
Yes. And the same goes for me. If I were to ask, what makes you a man? I would say this thing right here.
Okay.
which is actually the basis of everything else. So
Okay.
it's not my penis. It's not my junk. It's because everything evolves around that. My hormones, testosterone, my behavior is dictated by that. Because if I were a eunuch, you and I would be having a completely different conversation. And we are, because genetics, biology, is not all there is to us, but is an essential backbone part of it.
Yeah, and it cannot be ignored.
Nor can it be overridden.
No, I don't think so either.
And
but
that is why I think there is the danger of this ideological belief.
Yeah.
This is exactly why I'm skeptical and I'm questioning when people believe that they are something while outwardly denying they are not something that they are. Like a woman, like a man.
Could those two coexist? Could there be a balance in that?
In what?
Well, you said if somebody believes that they're something they're actually not.
Well, you just answered your own question. If I believe that I'm something that I'm not, I cannot be that.
Okay,
because there is a knowing that I'm not
Yeah.
that. So any conviction through repetition or because this is exactly what does it. This is conditioning and other kind of repetition that only serves the purpose of emotionally stimulating the person and making a person feel comfortable.
Accommodating, maybe?
Yes. And if we are more concerned with keeping people comfortable than telling them the truth, then I think that there's something wrong there.
Yeah. Would you say that if a lot of the population are heavily and deeply conditioned to a truth, and if they were to be presented the actual truth, wouldn't that wreak havoc in a sense?
Absolutely.
Is there a way to maybe ease in people into this in a better way?
I think that any attempt, again, so that will be means to an end. So, and you know this yourself, if you are faced with truth, then all of you is challenged. All your ego-invested beliefs are challenged.
Yeah.
So is there a safe way to go around it? Because you simply respond to truth.
Yeah.
Truth is. So
So
I cannot modify truth to make it more comfortable and appealing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. But you said something very interesting here. If I'm challenged, would you please repeat that again? So if
I have no idea what I said. It just goes, it just flows.
It just flows. We're in the zone. If I'm challenged, if a belief of mine is challenged, and tying this back to intersexual relationships, men and women relationships, and so forth. In our case, every time I'm challenged with something, can't think of an example right now, but there has been lots and lots of it. There is the resistance, but I am a person, I'm curious, I want to know, I want to learn.
Of course.
I'm not saying that I know everything. That would be that'd be futile, because who knows anything in essence, except for set belief systems, programming. Okay, this is a microphone.
Of course.
Whatever. Of course, it's not comfortable. Growth in and of itself is very uncomfortable, but growth is also the soil for expansion, and for expansion. And that is also what I believe relationships are about. So why come into a relationship? Because everything is relationship, yes, but you also come into it together.
Yeah, you choose to be in a relationship.
Yeah,
you choose
exactly.
to relate to someone or something.
And if we were to ask people, what is the purpose of relationships, and go out in town and like ask people, what's the purpose for you being in this relationship? I'm very curious what people would say. In essence, what's your take on this? Like, I think that relationships, or I inherently truly believe that with my whole body and being, that it's a place for growth where everybody is a mirror, more or less, and oftentimes in very intimate relationships where we become very close, where we get to know each other on a deep, deep level. That mirroring becomes then growth, which is uncomfortable, and can we then hold each other without blaming, without running away in this hookup, Tinder, whatever next culture. Next. Instead of staying in that discomfort and grow together, because that is healing. And I'm not saying that people should or everybody should heal in that concept also. Oh gosh, we need to talk about that concept. Oh, I need to heal. I need to heal before I enter a relationship. Do you? So that in and of itself is implying that somebody is wrong, faulty, unhealed, damaged. But aren't we all? And then that would mean that we are not. Like we are, yes, in a sense, perfect as the imperfect beings that we are.
Right.
So relationship is growth, is intimacy, which is then the building block for love and expansion and doing things in life.
So to answer your first question about like how I view relationships, we first have to acknowledge that there are several, and I think plethora and infinite aspects of relationships, because we cannot quantify relationships. If we measure them, that is still only a limited amount to how we can understand relationships. Like I can read so much different research. You can read Esther Perel, I can read Rollo Tomassi.
Read,
right.
It's
conceptualize. So I can do that. I mean, I do need that as a man. I need that like logical also comprehension of that. But that is in order for me to understand the transactional part of the relationship. Because for me to understand the transaction of the relationship and why I'm also engaged in this, I need to be honest with myself and really, really say, why am I here and what do I benefit from this? Because that is also entailed in part of who I am. I'm not going to lie. I'm here. Yes, love, needs, but that is the transaction. If there are needs here that need to be met, that in itself, in its essence, is a transactional aspect of the relationship. Whether that is compatible with someone or not, that remains to be seen. And through, as you said, through exploration, through getting to know each other, through trials, through errors, we see what relationship is without saying this is what the relationship is and this is what a relationship isn't. I believe one of the crucial mistakes we make, and again, this is how we are and this is how we quantify our relationships, is measuring the longevity of the relationship, measuring the success rate of marriages, like marriage success rate, measuring what successful marriage is.
Quantifying relationships?
As if we know what that is, as if we knew what happiness is, as if we knew how to quantify it. We can do a survey and ask people, are you happy in your relationship? And if, believe me, like most people I know aren't. But they will say they are, because there is so much shame in saying that you're not happy in a relationship, which will actually cause you to question your entire existence. Because, and again, relationships are not there to make us happy. Happiness is something that's only, again, one of the billion of aspects of your infinite aspects of your existence, and you're responsible for it.
Yes. You
are responsible for your own happiness, and you are responsible if you enter any form of interaction, relationship, whatnot, to, as Krishnamurti wonderfully says, be a light to yourself. To be your own guide, to be your own light, to take care of yourself. Because, for example, and this is the beautiful thing about masculine and feminine traits, like if I can be a fully, my best self, myself, fully, truly, there's nothing I can't do. There is no obstacle. There is no friction. There is no rejection. There is no resistance. There is simply this beautiful, beautiful thing that we call relationship, that we call whatever, call it. But I am solely responsible for my happiness. And if I enter a relationship with any utilitarianistic sense, with something that I want to benefit from, I think that also needs to be communicated. Or, I mean, since I'm a guy, for me that's embodied. I communicate very clearly. Okay, this is what I need, this is what I don't need. And when I don't know how to communicate, I'm like, hey, that's still communication. Not knowing to communicate is communication. Because if we're highly perceptible or perceptive people, we can really clearly tell what is wrong. If I'm, for example, quiet and I'm retreating, that's also communication. That's not lack of communication. That in itself is communication, but we make the mistake of saying, oh, he doesn't communicate that well, he is shy, he is like this. Again, quantifying, setting an example of what is good and what isn't, thus creating more stress and resistance.
What is good to whom and what is bad to whom.
Right.
People are so obsessed with being good people.
Right.
What is a good person?
Right.
But you said something interesting there. Okay, you're communicating through your body language. Okay, if I'm retreating or whatever, how would that then, the person you're relating to in that moment, how are they to know what you need and want in that case when you do that? Because some people would say like, okay, if I retreat, I want you. Sorry, just gonna.
Right.
So, for example, some people, going back to what I was saying about, childhood, absent father, how we are formed as humans, that stems back to attachment styles also. And how we show, yes, bodily show love, how we speak love, or communicate, or how would that then person know how to meet you in that? So if you say retreat, right, in your body language, and you kind of expect, well, you should be able to perceive this. What if you're in a different culture where that is interpreted as something else? I think humans, men, women, we're not mind readers.
Absolutely not.
We're not mind readers, and we tend to make up stories. Like you said something, okay, what is relationship? Well, relationship between two people is what those two people agree upon that being.
Or rather, what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, but
we can do the mini contracts, mini adjustments all the time, but it's in constant flux.
It is, but I would be mindful of just saying like, oh, it is what it is. Let's just go with the flow. Going back to what many women are taught today, like, oh, is he toxic, or is he a F-boy, or is he a high-value man, or all of these different terms to define something. But yes, somehow you have to define, you said it yourself, we need to say what is truth, what is actually real. And it could potentially be a problem just saying like, oh, it is what it is. Or let's just go with the flow, or it just is right now. Yes, I understand that concept,
sure.
But there needs to be, in essence, okay, not just communication, but comprehension. So when you communicate that with your body language, if you want comprehension and to create not disruption, but actually growing closer to the person you're interacting with, wouldn't it be a much more, not to say mature way, it's not about that, but like a healthier way to say like, okay, when I do this, if there's repeated miscommunication, like if you retreat or the other person does that, wouldn't it be healthier to be like, hey, when I do this, I want to be left alone. I'll come back to you, or please come and like give me a hug.
I don't like that.
Why?
Because it's conditioning all over again.
Is it?
Yeah. Because then it's not in the moment. Because I've experienced that, believe me, in my previous relationships. Like, when I do this for me. And that's more comfort, and that's more like just soothe me. And I don't see growth in that. I don't mind doing that for the woman. But if the response is the same, then what is happening is the problem is not tackled. The problem remains the same.
Does
you understand? Yes, it does.
Because you said something about transaction and needs being met.
No, but I'm answering your question. You ask me and I'm answering to you. I'm telling you that if a woman, for example, asks literally the same thing as a solution to the same problem, which is internal. So the problem is internal, as it normally always is. And you just need some external fix that I provide. Does that fix the problem?
Not necessarily.
So again, I don't mind doing it. And again, I might do sometimes. Am I then a bad guy for not doing what I'm asked to do? Because I need to believe the woman I'm with, that she's also focused on her growth, that she's also focused on dealing with her shit, and for me to help to as far as extent as I can. But if I only provide the patch, the plaster or whatever it is, just to patching the wound, I don't think any of us is growing.
Oh, that's a very, oh gosh, that's a very interesting way of seeing that. So
yeah,
interesting.
but we're different. That's the thing.
We
are different as men and women.
But wouldn't you say, like, you could then reenact the same pattern that little girl had with her, remember the absent father?
Oh, for sure.
She's crying, he comes home from work, and she's crying because she wants to play with her dad, or come dad, let's watch Barbie or whatever.
For sure.
Or Transformers. Choose. And if your counterpart in that relationship, the woman, your woman.
Thank you.
The woman, the womb holder.
Woman is good.
The birther of life.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay, let's not get out of hand. If that happens, and she has an emotional reaction to something, and you then perceive that, oh, I'm not going to just put like a Band-Aid on it. I'm going to move away, and she communicates to you, okay, when I am sad or when I do X, Y, Z, I would love for you to just not go away, like please stay in the room, or would you just please hug me or whatever. Wouldn't that then, this is interesting because I want to hear what you think about this.
Of course.
So if you would repeatedly follow, if you would say like, oh, this is just who I am, I leave the room, wouldn't that maybe also reinforce that original trauma to hurt or, well, not in the benefit of the relationship, but like that woman would not feel seen or heard or validated.
Right. But then I'm prioritizing the relationship over myself then.
But that is very egotistical. Why are you then in the relationship?
Well, I chose to be in that relationship. And at any moment I can choose to leave. And I'm not going to leave because of that kind of a thing, for example. But I don't believe we are there. I really don't think that we're there to soothe each other indefinitely and simply fulfill each other's needs. Nor am I saying that that's the case. But I'm telling you, as a man, I don't want to be in a relationship with a child. I want to be in a relationship with a woman. And I expect her to actually... It doesn't matter what I expect, actually. Mm-hmm. What reality is what matters. If there is a woman and I really expect her to have done the work and to want to constantly do the work to identify these things within herself, so when such situation arises, that she does her best to regulate herself, to learn how to regulate her emotions, to do whatever work is required. When that is exhausted, because I see it as kind of a reservoir, mm-hmm. And if you keep expanding that, it only grows. Mm-hmm. But for me to expand that reservoir, that hole, I need to let myself be in that. I need to go into my own despair. I need to go into my own dread, whatever, like existential crisis, whatnot. To go into my own, call it trauma, call it whatever. Once I've done that, hey, I really need you. Because don't forget, if I'm not needed, I won't be there. Mm-hmm. My role doesn't matter as a man. Yeah. So... imagine this. Imagine how I would feel as a man if that woman's primary response to any, I'm not saying that's the case, but to any kind of need, oh, I need you to hug me. Oh, I need you to make me this. Then that my focus of life doesn't become me, it becomes her. Mm-hmm. So that I don't want that for myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to purport that or suggest that as how relationships should or shouldn't be. I'm telling you how it is as a man. Mm-hmm. I really want and expect from my woman to be able to really go into that and show me. Not show me as, Milan, look, but show me that she can take care of herself. And when she's done, when she's fought her battle, Milan, I need you. Because then I can enter my role and be that man. Milan, I've been fighting my demons for an entire day. I really need a hug. Or whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Sex, whatever. Here I am. Because I'm actually needed. Mm. Do you understand? I'm not a tool.
Yeah.
I'm not a tool. I'm needed.
Nor should anybody be a tool.
Absolutely. But then I don't see that, for example, a woman that I'm relating to, that I'm in a relationship, any form of relationship with, should be like, oh yeah, look, I feel like having sex. Mm-hmm. Let's have sex. Boom. Mm. No, it's something that I really, really genuinely desire, crave, and feel, and I'm not also disconnected from reality as to want it when a woman clearly doesn't. So there is a transactional element to the relationship, and there is also love, and there is also understanding. But remember something that you yourself said in our conversations. I can have you and I can have me.
Yeah.
So for that to happen, for me to have myself, I need to see it's not a requirement to be fulfilled, by the way. But this really resonates when I say, I need to see that you're really, through your own example, your own life, demonstrating in your own way that you're moving, that you're not stuck in the same place, that you're not stuck in that dark hole that you want me to get you out of. Because I don't mind doing that, but I don't want to do that. Because all of us, that no one can fight that battle for us.
No, nobody can save us but ourselves in a sense. Yeah, but we can also help each other in that.
Absolutely.
And not condemn or judge each other for also needing that in some instances. Because oftentimes what happens in this case, intimate relationships between men and women, is that you can go your whole lifetime. Stemming back to that fictive example of the absent father, for example, you can go whole lifetime not ever touching upon certain, call it wounds, those are often masked by coping mechanisms and avoidance escapism, working too much, where that ties into why women maybe today are also like in the workforce, like, career escapism. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But
we'll get to. Sorry, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Well, I'm feeling comfortable enough in my feminine essence in your presence to unfold and be my full self.
Unfold all you want.
Unfolding.
Please.
Blooming.
Continue. Please
it's a
continue.
meadow.
Please continue.
But I feel comfortable in doing that, and this is once again an example in real time of feminine essence. It's not that I'm taking over your podcast, but you're giving me the space to be like, here I am. And thank you for holding me in my blooming. Because otherwise that would be like a wildfire.
Speaking about wildfire and fire, we're just going to check the fireplace.
All right.
So we took a small break to get away from the fireplace.
Yeah, I'm burning up. Speaking of wildfire, right?
Yeah. And speaking of what you said before about to continue where we left off regarding the meeting the needs in the relationship and stuff like that. Again, I'm not inherently or necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but we do, as men and women, have different perception of what relationship is and should be. So if you as a woman want your needs met, that's in accordance with your most feminine essence, that you want and crave protection and safety.
Sorry. Just the discord between the actual feminine essence and the filtering layers and I would say armor, actually, that women today in the westernized societies with the movement of feminism, equality, being in the workforce and corporate need to carry.
Choose to?
Right. Choose to.
Right.
Because they think they need to.
Right.
To survive. Survival response.
Okay. Please tell me more.
See, there's no one specific person dictating how society should or is looking like, whatever.
Fully agreed.
It is... So, once again, what is truth? What is reality? It is the majority of people agreeing upon, okay, this is what truth is. And that is how society then also...
Not majority.
No?
All of us. That is why it's such an impossible task. It's not impossible. It's a Promethean task. It needs to stem from the individual. The individual must want to know the truth. And that means shedding away everything that the truth isn't.
True.
So please continue on women and the armor and their need, want, desire to...
I would call it the protective armor because... like the masculine shield. And you were saying something about women becoming the men they want to be in relationship with.
Yeah.
And in every saying, there's a grain of truth also, because what have we been hearing? I don't know, like maybe we do read different sides of the story and learn about it, but not from the biological standpoint, not the
raw essence of it.
Exactly,
right.
But like the more emotional, spiritual...
The software.
You could call it. You could call it that. But like the emotional, spiritual, let's say.
Right.
Not spiritual in the sense, namaste, and all of those things, but like the spiritual of the connection between people.
The consciousness, would you say?
Oh, don't get me started on consciousness.
Okay, let's keep it in. Yeah. Let's stay with the hardware.
Did you miss the part what I said? I'm a modern day philosopher, so we need to try to keep this as confined as possible, even though life cannot be confined. Don't push my buttons.
Sorry.
I can go on for hours about that, but anyways, where was I? Yeah, the masculine armor in the world where women then not are told. This is not something we are told, but this is also stated out there. Like, oh, become the person you would want to date, or become the person you would want your husband or wife to be.
Which is indirectly communicated. No one tells you that, but here is the opportunity. Here is opportunity. Here you have the chance, as you say in the West, we have the chance to do anything we want virtually. Anything we want. And ironically, that has become the source of most of our problems. Mm-hmm. Because again, I'm pro having as much opportunity as you want. I think that is what actually can bring to about the flourishment of the mind consciousness society. But conditioning where people will go, telling them what is good and what isn't, and encouraging certain patterns of behavior, that I see danger in.
Mm-hmm. Could you also see the dangers of having too many options?
Absolutely. Because if you have, again, and I'm happy you said this, because we go to the problem of what female empowerment is about. Mm-hmm. So women are free to do what they want. And it is exactly owing to that freedom that women are acting like men.
Yeah, and see, it's called freedom. You just said it, freedom.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I would say it's just about as close to the opposite of that.
Exactly.
I can tell you a personal story if you want to hear it.
Please.
And I think you asked me that earlier, but like we just go on tangents here. But
classic.
Okay. So many years ago, I've always known in my essence, I am an extremely feminine woman, like very. But in society, that, not that it's not accepted or was not accepted, but it in essence, it was not accepted. I was bullied.
By women.
Predominantly
women. But that's also, a really important piece of information.
Not just women,
yeah,
but women too. Yeah. Yes. It was very difficult to keep up with the rest of my peers, with society, well, as teenagers or whatever, but I just felt like it's too quick, too fast, too hard, too masculine. Like now I can use that word. I did not use that word back then, but that was how it felt. Like not that masculine is like hard, fast.
Of course.
But we can go into the core qualities then of feminine and masculine polarities and qualities, because we all each like in ourselves have both. It's not that like, oh, I'm a very feminine woman and that I only have feminine energy and feminine traits. That is not true. I need masculine traits, healthy masculine traits, to be able to sustain myself in the world, whatever that looks like, but to keep moving forward. Because you mentioned that, moving forward.
Yes.
When we talked about people having their own issues and regarding that, everybody, we need to get back to that. And I don't know if we're going to do it in this podcast, but it's there was a specific thing you said there that I wanted to elaborate on. But anyways, so I had to kind of man up, be tougher,
right.
Be like more stoic, stone face, not...
So what would that mean? I'm really happy you said that, more stoic. So what would that mean?
Well, in this case, how I use this word for describing what I had to become. Mm-hmm. To be more unaffected, to let it pass by, but it actually did not. Mm-hmm. But just like on the surface level, like no, I'm unaffected by this. I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to study this, and what's the next step? What career am I going to choose? I remember myself saying like, no, I don't want to study right now. Like I don't want to study at university right now. I remember saying this, I need a year, just like decompress, travel a bit, work a bit, learn about life, learn about myself, actually figure out what do I actually want?
Yeah.
And what do I need? But there's no time for that.
Right.
Study, work, do. So anyways, I felt like I had to become a person I was not. And not saying that I was fake, not in any sense, but just like not, because I'm extremely sensitive as a woman and things get to me and I am emotional and I follow my cycle because I believe in nature knows best and I follow nature's laws. So I don't want to like interfere.
You are nature.
Well, that too. Yes. We're not machines or robots. How much people want to believe that, but we're not. If I cut myself now, I will bleed. So that conditioned me by seeing my peers, seeing how the world looks, to, okay, if I'm going to make it in this world, I need to not become one of, I don't want to say them because it's also me, but like I need to become a certain way, to be a certain way.
To compete.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
And that's the masculine trait.
Exactly.
Because we compete.
Exactly.
And that is in our nature.
Yes.
And there is a scientific literature actually proving, I mean, I knew this in my essence already, that men actually thrive in competitive environments.
Mm-hmm.
They thrive. Women don't, because women feel unsafe in competitive environments. Women don't want to compete. They compete in different ways. But not in the sense that in which men do.
No.
And when I hear women who say, oh, I want to join the corporate sphere, I want to go and be a boss as B, I want to do this stuff. I'm telling them, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. You have no idea what it means to be a man trying to make it, especially if you're trying to make it on your own.
I do.
If you're trying to go toe-to-toe, shoulder to shoulder with men who are, they'll show you no mercy.
Nope.
Doesn't matter if you're a woman or not. You're a competitor.
Yeah, and imagine that. So I jokingly said, like, yeah, I know, but it's not a joke because I know I was that person. I followed that path, and I knew with every fiber of my being, screaming no, like this, like no, because it was so visceral, it was somatic, it was in me. It is so interesting how the body speaks to us, by the way.
Yeah, it does.
I got. Oh, did I?
No, I'm adjusting it for you.
Did I ruin this?
No, you didn't.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just adjust those on the side.
Merci. How the body knows. And at several points in that journey of studying and then starting to work, my first job, I got ill. Tonsillitis, sinuses, all the time. My skin broke out.
So your immunity was compromised.
I was so stressed. I was under so much stress and pressure to perform, to be a certain way. I think I've actually never, I mean, maybe in a private setting to a close friend or so in my family and like my closest circle, they know, but I was so miserable. I was, on the surface, people would say like, oh, she's so the most social, fun-loving person. She's like, I was everywhere. I was friends with everybody. FOMO. I could have.
Yeah, you were everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. When I started working, it's like, yeah, you have to have some dog years in the beginning.
Dog years?
Dog years, maybe that's a Swedish saying, but that's like put in the heart, like put in the work, like the first 3 to 5 years, like you don't...
to gain momentum.
Yeah, and don't expect like it to be easy, like really grind.
Oh yeah, okay.
So what happened was I was actually extremely miserable. I even got depressed, like really depressed. And I still went out there. And now I was so heavily programmed, Milan, that I would despise people. Not people per se, but like if people were like, oh, it's showing like signs of weakness, of being like, oh, I'm ill, I'm going to take a day off. I would go to work if I had a fever, like grind, never stop it.
I think you were the perfect man.
Oh, I was.
That's the thing, because for us men, this is the default. This is how we are. This is what we go through. This is the burden of performance.
Yes. But see, in desperate times seeks desperate measures. What is that saying?
Yeah. I mean, desperate times require desperate measures.
That's also one of the reasons. Like, I saw that something was completely off. Like, it cannot be like this. I am not feeling well. And I see all these people, also women, they do it without any issues. Like, they can do it.
Seemingly without any issues in the same way you just described.
Exactly.
Because on the surface, it's all good. Jasmina is showing up. Milan is showing up. All is good when the curtain goes down.
But the thing is, one would believe so. I don't know if that is so heavily programmed or was or is in the people I had around me who were also women, where they would, yes, agree to a certain extent of, yeah, I mean, of course it's hard, but like, the language was still like, that is the way it is. And I am weird and I'm off and I'm odd for even sometimes trying, like, you know, hey, do you also feel like this sometimes? Like, is it really supposed to be like this? I don't feel like it's not a good fit. It's not a good match. Like, this can't be it, can it? See, since I was a kid, I was always questioning. My favorite question is why. Like, my middle name should be why, because why? Why is it supposed to be like this? It cannot be. And I had no reference point at that time to learn about, well, feminine, masculine energies, or not just energies, but traits, essence, polarity, all of those things. So I started to do my research. Why is it like this? And there it began. It went to the point where I became so distant from myself in that what I now can say escapism from the knowing, right?
From your instinct.
Yeah.
That's
I was
the worst.
And I was so afraid because what if I sunk cost, right? Corporate term anyways, but I invested so much already into my career. I mean, I wasn't like a hot shot or whatever, like CEO, boss, whatever. But yeah, I had a pretty good career. I was a pretty amazing worker, like an employee rather. But when I got home, I was done. I had like no energy for anything else.
Right.
And then to juggle that with relationships, friends, well, relationships, all kinds of relationships.
Yeah. Lucky.
He wasn't in the picture.
Oh, okay.
Or
okay,
he
okay.
was. He came in later. He actually...
Lucky
he taught me...
dog.
Yes, I get a pug. He's amazing. He actually taught me a lot by having him coming into my life. Actually, when I started working. Yeah, see? He... If it weren't for him, I have a tattoo of him for the reason that he has said... Like, I do not say this lightly, but that little... soul dog, like my best friend, he's saved my life a few times, in the most profound of ways, and all ways possible. Because I realized at a certain point, because in the beginning I was aware of the responsibility of having a dog, but I didn't fully understand. One could say, I've even said this before, one could say, I'm not equating like dogs to children or whatnot, no, but still I am solely responsible for that life, for his existence. That I was like, there is more to life than just, you know, being with friends or being everywhere, working and being egotistical in a sense.
Would you say that Lucky's presence also kind of kept you away from partying excessively and engaging in that kind of life? Because many women that I know that are actually in their masculine essence, not that I am pointing fingers at anyone or anything or calling out a certain category of women, but simply saying that when I see women stuck in the corporate world that are, again, highly competitive, highly masculine required, so they're required to actually enter their masculinity to be more masculine, thus go out and seek meaningless sex relationships, whatnot. Would you say that contributed to, would that Lucky kind of made you more responsible? So we had to do another check and switch from 4K to HD because we were a bit ambitious and everyone likes 4K. Yep. But it's important that you guys listen to this rather than watch it. I mean, it is a wonderful scenery and everything, but still. So moving on. We were with Lucky and with your decision to have him and then how that influenced you.
Oh, no, it wasn't a decision. I got him.
You got him?
Yes,
Mm.
it just happened.
Okay.
Well, no, but you were asking about if that influenced me to not party as much.
Yeah, to be more responsible, so to say.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say about that was, at that time, we were very young, and yeah, I was probably partying much more before him, but also because I had no energy to go party as much.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, when I started working, because when I was studying at university, we were all like, yeah, university, college, like we're partying and stuff. And then Lucky came when I started working, and I realized how taxing that was on the system to, not necessarily corporate, but, business. I had no energy. That's when I realized, that something was not off, but it didn't make any sense to me, because not only did I have Lucky, other people had dogs too. It's not about that. But I just could not keep up working, and also I worked like 10, 12 hours a day. Like I worked a lot, because that's what you do. I was in real estate.
And then also if you work a lot and you have I don't like the word pet. If you have a dog, if you have company, then people that I know that are overwhelmed by their work actually don't have a genuine relationship to their animals. And that I think is a whole other aspect, because then that hole is never truly filled.
What hole?
Well, that one aims to fill with having an animal, having a companion.
Yeah, that is a whole nother. Oh yeah, people tend to get pets. I don't like the word pet eater, because I don't consider,
for lack of a
Lucky
better
is
word.
like he's lucky,
Exactly.
I'm not his owner. I cannot even. Who am I to say I own him? No. Many people do that to feel like, oh, I feel lonely, so I'll get a dog, or I'll just have a cat, or whatever. Firstly, I did not go and buy Lucky. I got Lucky for Christmas because I have wanted a dog since I was 4, and that was one of my biggest wishes. Like, yeah, I want to have a dog, and I got him because I was, as I said, I was extremely miserable, unwell, due to the fact that I was doing internship, working, studying, like all of these things. Like, so I got him for Christmas, and one day he was just there. That was a shock. Like, oh, whoa, wait, what? Okay, what? Wow. And after the initial 2-week phase where I was like in complete shock, like there's a life here. Like, it was so small. Okay. From day one, I would say, we went to like puppy academy, and like he was super disciplined, and I was like investing, because he actually gave me that energy to have like to focus that outside of work. But the work was so demanding that I also felt like I couldn't give him what he needed. And at that time I had help, like from family and friends as well, which was very, thank you, forever thank you. Anyone who's ever helped me with Lucky, like it's to take care of something, to nurture something. It is really hard. And like, okay, I hear myself like single parents, man, woman, whoever who raises children by themselves, you're heroes, like heroes, complete heroes.
For sure.
But yeah, not to go on a tangent, to answer your question, Lucky gave me, in a sense, an anchor. But not in a sense that he was like weighing me down, because never ever have I ever, like I know people who had dogs, and they're like, no, I can't take care of the dog because, work, and then I can't travel. I can't, like, it's a commodity. Like, okay, I have these pants and then I throw these pants away. No, Lucky's priority. He's this life. He came into my life, and I am his, mom or caretaker or whatever. And we have this relationship, and I'm going to invest in that relationship. It would have been much easier in so many ways if I gave Lucky away or sold him, but no, till death do us part. That is an investment, because, see, this is going to tie into the feminine and masculine, whatever. I'm coming to the point here. I've always been like that. Like, when I have a relationship with somebody, be it a friend, a man, my dog, I invest. That is so valuable to me, and I don't throw that away for the next swipe or
for the next best thing,
for the next high or whatever, like the dopamine kicks of the potentiality of something else. So he anchored me into direction to actually, because I had to take care of him, I started taking care of myself, like starting asking myself, wait, something is off here. And also with the partying, like I did not find it as fun anymore because I didn't have the energy. And when I did have the energy, I would want to, go on walks with Lucky or go to the puppy academy and teach him cool tricks and meet with people in the dog park. And kind of like, I'm not saying that partying is unhealthy, but that lifestyle where at that time, I wouldn't call that healthy. Escapism. And I think women, like the other women or friends that I was surrounded with or by, they did not, to the same extent as myself, experience how taxing it was to actually compete in the corporate world or in business or whatever. I mean, I loved the job at that time in a sense because I got to meet so many people and connect. And I would always be told like, oh, you're not at all like, the other people in real estate, or you're so different. And I really hated having like shirts on. Like when I quit real estate, I had a ritual where I actually burned my shirts, all except one or two, because it's so confining.
So let's tie this then into the choice of modern women who would rather, and again, this is something I would like to point out for everyone listening to this. So the modern woman, this is me making a general statement. So this only applies to women who do that, not all women, as always. So whenever I say something, please just take that with a grain of salt or just examine it for yourselves. Yeah. So women reject masculine authority. So there is the rejection of masculine authority, and there is also the misinterpretation and misunderstanding of what masculine authority is. Going back to where it starts from, which is the father in the home, which is the father that has presence, that has frame, that is there, that is respected by his wife, the children, doesn't matter. So I hear modern women and I speak to them. And when this topic arises, I get very interesting answers. So I ask them, because they don't want a man. They don't need a man. They want a man. So I don't need a man. I want a man. That's one. And I get allergic when I hear that. And there is the other thing, which is, well, okay, I don't need a man, but I accept masculine authority at work. So do you see the distinction there? Do you see the paradox and the fallacy of women still choosing to work for men? And I'm saying this very carefully because it's actually a statistical fact that most employers are men, most company owners are men, most CEOs are men. And then a woman rejects a man that will actually love her, care for her, provide for her, but chooses a man that she also perceives as authority, does what she's told in a much less loving way, but for money and sustenance. What's your take on that?
Well, you go to work. It's a confined space. You know your role. You go there, you play that role, you go home. In the best of scenarios. What if you said women reject masculine authority? Was that what you said? Women, I think, crave healthy masculine authority. But then authority, what do I mean by that? It's easier if you go to a job, you can give notice, you can leave that job. It is not, because relationships, once again, they're mushy. Like you can't distinguish them. Yeah,
they're binding.
Well, in a sense, it's much more clear. So if you go to work, like, okay, contracts, negotiation. I mean, this is how I perceive it then. Also, freedom, but the fallacy of that freedom of my whole life story there that ended in complete stress, like breakdown. Like my system just broke down because I just wasn't able to drop that armor and be like, okay, let's do something else that follows that essence that I am. That came after I became very ill of that stress and all that pressure. I couldn't carry that armor anymore. Perceived as freedom, anything but freedom. Wow, no, imprisonment in a sense.
Yeah.
Entrapment. So I think way too much actually, but how I see it is that healthy masculine authority needs to be modeled, known, seen, understood, because if women today don't know what that looks like, haven't experienced it, and we as humans, we see this is this is Homo sapiens 101. We move away from the unknown, the scary, to survive. The nervous system reacts, okay, this is unknown, this is scary, this is odd, this is weird, I don't know what this is.
Back to coping, back to habits,
either,
back to
regulation. Fight,
yeah.
flight, freeze, fawn. So if you don't know what that looks like, what that feels like, how that is, and I say feel, look, because people can say, oh, what does it look like? But if you know
there needs to be a stereotype for us to actually be able to make a distinction. I don't like stereotypes. I wouldn't
say stereotype necessarily, but like a model.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a red thread.
Exactly. But again, one of the reasons, correlation rather than causation, that we don't have this is because, again, since the rise of the sexual revolution, quote unquote sexual revolution, and the introduction of hormonal birth control, what we've seen happen was the increase of divorce and women initiating divorce in marriages, women also pushing their pregnancy to be so they're pregnant a bit later rather than earlier. And again, I'm not judging that decision. It's just we're seeing it for what it is. But we also remove the man and his importance from the family. Because if we give women so much power and independence, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but again, if a woman doesn't need a man, if a man is not needed, then a man kind of lacks purpose and meaning. Yeah. Not that it's intertwined with a woman's, but they are complementary. They are complementing each other. So if this is happening, if we're actually encouraging women to be independent, to provide for themselves, again, not saying that shouldn't happen, simply observing it from a just objective standpoint and saying that if this is happening, and this has been the trend since 1965, then men have nothing to do in relationships anymore.
Exactly.
Because men can be on their own. And that's what they're doing.
Exactly.
That's what they're doing. And
it is a Gordian knot, isn't it?
It's exactly what men are doing now. And this is like the MGTOW, men going their own way, red pill movements. This is what we discuss in the manosphere and similar movements. This is what we tell each other, not as encouragement, but hey guys, all of a sudden being alone is not a bad thing to do. Because I will do my best as a man to increase, David Hawkins, to increase the probability and likelihood of something happening, which is family, which is marriage, which is a loving union. But when I look at the stats, when I see that at least, I'm not going to say 80 because that's an alarming number, but it's around 80. But I'm going to say 70.
Okay.
70% of divorces are initiated by women.
Okay.
So these are the same women that choose to be married to these men, because it is men who ask the question. So men ask women to get married. Women say yes. They start a family. And then for whatever reason, and I'm sure it's a valid reason in itself, I'm not shaming any woman for leaving family or whatnot. But if a family doesn't remain together, everyone suffers. And there's only further fragmentation in that. And then we as men are discouraged from entering marriages if we look at statistics, and if also we see that, we recognize a pattern here. And the pattern is the following. If we encourage women to be free, so sexually liberated, right? Quote unquote, sexually liberated, to be more like men, to sleep around, the message we receive as men is the following. you as a woman put next to no value on sex, which is so closely tied to your biology, to your nature. So if sex doesn't matter to you, then you can have it with anyone you want.
Yeah.
Then how am I important in your life as a man?
Yeah, exactly.
Where is my value in that? And I'm not saying men should be fearful or insecure. I'm saying that there is again, I'm not pleading, I'm not advocating for authority. I'm not tying or grabbing onto scientific authority as a source of truth or information, but it does play a significant role to me as a man who is analytical and who likes breaking things down and understanding them. So if statistically, and all these statistics I can provide, I just don't like quoting them without fully knowing who did it and when. If the likelihood of divorce is increased with each subsequent sexual encounter a woman has with a man, then the more women are liberated, then the less their likelihood is that they'll remain in marriage. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't, but us men, when we really choose women, that's the reason we choose them for. Because that's why we approach them. Hey, this is the woman. I'm really attracted by this woman. And then starts the so-called vetting process if I'm interested. If I'm interested in this woman and if I see her as a potential prospect for a long-term relationship or marriage, I will see whether this woman is capable by her own choice. Not because I want it so, not because I'm there to manipulate her, train her. I've heard many women say that. I've heard many women say that men train women for marriage. That men condition women so that they can keep them as pets. And for them to do for men to do whatever they want. And I'm here to say that that's absurd. Because what I see men, as a man, what I see men actually doing is, you don't know what the hell you're doing because you've been giving so many options and opportunity and you didn't have a dad to tell you these things, to tell you what's wrong, to tell you what's right, to protect you from other men. Older brother. That having an older brother, that changes everything. But if we didn't have a generation of men, be it fathers or brothers or grandfathers, that haven't told women not how to behave, but to tell them what behavior is not desirable, what kind of behavior makes you look like a genuine, true, mature woman, a lady, or a slut. And if that doesn't happen, women don't get the message. The message doesn't get to them. So they think that they are these, quote unquote, high value women. And they cannot understand that by the very nature of them only getting older and not being in those relationships that they want to be in, being single, is the exact proof of that. It's a direct correlation to that. I'm not calling them names. I'm not saying they're all like that. Not all women. Of course, take it with a grain of salt. And you and I went through some pictures last night of my friends who are women who settle down. Because I think there is this enormous delusion that many women have, which is, you know what, I'll just let this go. I'll just wait for the one and the one will show up eventually. And
become the one and the one will show up.
Yeah, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do exactly what I want, but I'm completely going to be oblivious to everything else in my life. And if he comes, I'll be like, that's him. But that's not him. That's actually, again, coping. That's, again, reenactment of the wound. That's, again, seeking, again, the danger of the impending doom, the sense of impending doom. I'm getting older. I'm less fertile as a woman. I'm less attractive. I cannot compete with younger women. Because men, as much as I want to say, I hear many women rationalize this. They say, I've never felt better now that I'm a certain age. And I'm saying, and more power to you. More power to you. I would never shame or piss on that. But you clearly don't understand men. You clearly don't understand what men want.
Well, that was where we began, wasn't it? We don't inherit, we speak different languages,
right.
And then if we do, we need to comprehend what we're actually saying. Yeah.
But men are shamed for saying this. There is an entire movement that shames men for voicing their sexual preferences, for openly saying that they prefer younger women, for openly saying that instead of being cuckolded, fathering another man's child,
Okay.
that they say, I want my own child.
Yeah.
They are shamed for that, and they are being pedestalized as heroes for accepting to father another man's child. That was something I have a great deal against, because when we, for example, there is not a single good term for an older man and a younger woman. A stud is not that. An older woman dating a younger man, is a cougar. And I can go into so many cultural adaptations to this narrative that, again, and I'm not victimizing men or myself here. I'm simply speaking about this because I think it's important that men hear this. There is so much that us men are also not told of our inherent power, of our choice, of our role in our own lives.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you said like fathers telling like daughters, okay, this teaching kind of what value is to men, or I'm paraphrasing, but same goes for young boys turning into men. Oh, very much so. So
imagine a man who is a beta father. So then the child doesn't have a healthy role model.
Exactly.
Even then sees his father that kind of the mother manipulates. The mother just does whatever she wants. The father is just paying for everything.
Does it necessarily need to be like manipulation? Can it be that the woman is in her masculine, and well, if she's in her masculine at work and takes that into the relationship as well, because this is actually very difficult and a fallacy that women are told. Be in your masculine at work, but then be in your feminine when you get home. It is.
It's fragmentation 101. It's fragmentation 101, but you mentioned something good, like, is it necessarily manipulation? No, it's not, but if it is, then it is. We call it what it is.
Oh, yeah.
We call it for what it is.
I just wanted to make it clear that is not the only case. Like,
no, absolutely not.
So if the father is, you said beta male, like if the woman has the pants on in the relationship, let's say that.
Yeah.
It is taxing on her. Like, remember my story now. It is extremely taxing because our nervous systems are a bit different. Our brains work completely differently. I'm not going to go into neuroscience nerdery here, but I could. I want to, but I'm not going to do that. It's not my podcast.
We'll do more.
We are different, and that is extremely taxing on the woman. And then, in a sense, yes, it is nice to have a nice guy. I'm doing this because what is a nice guy? But if I am, as a woman, need to have the pants on in the relationship, I make the decisions, I lead the household. It is so taxing on my system that it is a double taxation, basically. And those relationships are then, unless that man is extremely in his feminine, and see, we have both energies. I'm not saying that's wrong. Some men are more in their feminine. Yes. And those relationships work perfectly because the polarity is the thing. Yeah. When both of us become men, like if I'm in my masculine energy and you're a masculine man, right? That will not work. We will,
kill each other. Kill each other. Because we're two men.
It's that too.
Because we're competitive.
Yeah. And it will be like... discrepancies, fights. Well, we won't literally kill each other, hopefully, but we will not be compatible, nor will we be attracted. Imagine two magnets, right? Opposites attract.
Imagine what?
Two magnets.
Two magnets. Mm-hmm.
Opposites do attract.
Yeah.
And
yes,
once again, not every woman will always be, and not every woman is inherently, mostly predominantly in her feminine essence. Some women have more of a masculine essence. It is not wrong. Nothing's wrong or right, but just like to be aware of that, and not to, in this case, come home to your man or your family and, I'm not given. You said something extremely, extremely important earlier. If there is no room in a woman's life for a man,
if he's not needed,
but the essence is, if there is no room for him, make space. Like, take out one drawer, empty it out, there is space for a person to, and like not necessarily that a man moves into like, or
nor does she need to be less herself for there to be space.
But just generally make space in your life for a man to enter.
Right. Act in accordance with that. I hear so many women who say, I want a man, I need a man. But when you observe their lifestyles, when you observe how they live their lives, it's completely contradicting what they say.
Yes.
It's completely contradicting because there's just no space here for a man. There is absolutely no space. And if there is, it's just for the utilitarian part of it, to use each other.
So if you would give an example of a woman that says this, oh, I want and need a man, and she says those things, but she does not actually have space, what would that look like for you as a man?
Say that again.
So you mentioned women, they say, yeah, I want and I need a man, yes. But then in actuality, in their life, they do not have that space.
Yeah.
What would that look like? How do you perceive that as a man?
They're lost. They're completely disoriented in this world because I know women as such, and I actually have respect for them because they are, I wouldn't say they are my friends, I will say we were closely acquainted. So I kind of feel a moral obligation not to call them out.
We're not calling anybody out.
They will even not know, they might know who they are if they hear this podcast. But what they did, and this is a very interesting fact, and this is a fact, that they choose men that are not much bigger than them.
Bigger?
Yeah, like
bigger.
They're equal sized.
Taller?
They're equal sized. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're taller, you're also kind of like bigger, but maybe not necessarily. Good point.
Okay.
They will choose men that are short.
Okay.
They will seek men that are kind of available. Like, it's not... they don't meet because they crave those men. They don't respect these men. I think that's the main trait of this kind of woman. But were you asking me about a woman that both wants and needs a man?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like wanting,
because
needing,
you said that.
Wanting, needing.
Yeah.
It's desire. We can go so deeply into discussion and the elaboration of what desire is because it's based again on an image.
Yeah.
And if we fall into that trap of idealization of how a man should be, how a man should be, then we will never be truly happy.
How should anybody be? Like, what do you mean, like how a man should be?
Well, we all, due to the enormous cultural influence, social media, social media is the worst because you can go online and again, dating apps, whatever, you can literally look and you can find your type. And that is the problem. Because if you have your type in your head, then if you're a woman, then every man is a stepping stone to that type. Remember open hypergamy.
Yeah.
So if a woman is so deeply influenced and brainwashed into what her desired type is, what open hypergamy means, and for all of those who don't know, hypergamy is women's innate biological tendency to mate up and across. So to get the better man every time. And women choose their partners opportunistically. That means that they will not choose men that are not in their vicinity, right? But with the emergence of social media, they can have access to any man they want virtually. So the connection can be established like this. What do women do then? Women create an avatar. So the online presence, which is meant to attract men.
Of themselves. Yeah.
So I'm gonna, let's say that there is a woman who is actually not a bikini model, but all she does is take pictures in her underwear. All she does is takes picture in her bikini. And I know a woman like this. And
addition to that, you said avatar. Filters, Photoshop, not actually presenting
not
the
reality.
what you look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what women fail to understand, very, very many women that I speak to, is that they think that their online presence, that their presence in social media is so innocent. Oh, I'm just using this for fun. No, because you're one message away from a relationship. You're one message away from a genuine human encounter. Because if a guy sees you, he's going to be like, hey, what's up? And if you like that guy, if that guy is in your If he ticks the boxes, you're going to meet that guy, and that's going to result in something.
But see, having boxes to tick, that is already like,
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Like, if you have boxes to tick, either if you're a man or a woman,
Exactly.
but see, I'm speaking from a woman's perspective now. Oh, he needs to be tall, short, brown hair, blonde hair, live like this, look like this, do this. If you have boxes, if you have a preconceived picture of this person, you're already confining yourself to a certain quote-unquote person that you might encounter. What is that saying? Like, you miss the forest for all the trees? No, is that the saying?
You see the forest for the trees.
Oh gosh, well, what I want to say is like, yes, but then you kind of confine yourself, and then you look for something that is on paper. Oh, this is perfect on paper. But then, once again, we were saying, like, look at yourself, evaluate yourself, as men, as human beings in general. But like, where am I at? What do I... Yeah.
And that is where the problem is. We speak about solipsism. We speak about women's... There's literally a female delusion calculator. There's a website. It's called Female Delusion Calculator.
Seriously?
Because women have this. No. I'm not making fun of women. I'm saying that this is a genuine thing. Like us men, we've taken this so seriously that we're just trying to show women in a nicest way possible. Not like fresh and fit. Not like
Please show me that later.
I will. I promise. And when women type in, you can literally type, "I want a guy that's this tall, makes this much money." All the features, and it runs against the official census, the data census. So men that match that category. So women, again, there were women who were on Fresh and Fit, and the guy Myron, he took out the delusion calculator, and he asked one of the girls. I mean, he asked several, but let's take. How much does he earn? $500,000 a year. How tall is he? 6'2". This and that, race, Caucasian. The percentage of such a man was 0.000 something. But this is the ideal for this woman, and this is what this woman strive towards. That's the problem. Because what women want doesn't exist. That man doesn't exist.
Do women know what they want? Because you say what women want does not exist, but what do women actually want? Do we know what women want?
Well, that is exactly the problem. I'm not supposed to answer that question. But if I do, I'm going to be thrown rotten eggs and tomatoes in my...
It was a rhetorical question
yeah.
for any listener out there who identifies as a woman.
Who is a woman.
Oh, is a woman. Well, I want to be politically correct. Blah.
No need to be.
Tongue-tied. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyways, for the listeners, like seriously, what do you want in life in general? Who are you?
But that is the thing.
Who are you?
Do you see the problem here? Because you ask women what they want, and they won't give you an answer based on the reality. They will give you the answer based on reality combined with imagination, potentiality, and desire. That is the problem. Because what women do to themselves nowadays, we speak about this very often, is they tell themselves, the right guy is right around the corner. I'm going to just be, focus on myself, which they still don't do, ironically. I'm going to be here and I'm going to wait for the perfect guy to come and pick me. They're called pick me girls. There's an entire subculture of these kinds of women. And it's fascinating. Yeah, I'll show you all these things. And these are women that are so, no disrespect, so delusional that they genuinely believe that they're that worthy and valuable. That there's
wait, did I understand you correctly? Like they just blobbishly sit around and like, hey, wait. I'm just going to sit here.
Yes.
And look pretty, and somebody's going to...
And someone's going to recognize the value that I hold and take me. And here is the problem. Again, you and I speak about this often. The difference between sexual market value and inherent value of the human. Yeah. The soul, the being, call it whatever. And the difference between the two is very obvious. In order for a woman to understand her sexual market value, she needs to understand male nature. Mm-hmm. And in order for men to understand women's sexual market value, men need to understand female nature, vice versa. We need to learn about each other but not make conclusions like, aha, this is it. But to really, really keep learning and be curious. Because when I see women that engage in these kinds of things, they end up old and childless. Again, quoting just a random statistic, which is not so random. Morgan Stanley, the investment company, that predicted that by the year 2030, at least 40% of women between the age of 25 and 45 are going to be single and childless. And this is important because already the researchers are telling investors what to start investing in.
Yeah, well, welcome neo-capitalism, right?
And yeah, what's your take on that?
Speaking of, I just got like a little realization, in a sense. Relationships are being capitalized on.
Exactly.
This right now is trending. What the actual F? Don't want to curse in your podcast.
Curse.
What the fuck? Like, seriously. Isn't it a trend? Like, oh wait, women want, what did you say? Like 6 feet tall, 6 figures?
666. 6 pack, 6 figures, 6 inches.
Whatever. Oh, funny.
Right.
But seriously, whatever it is, right now it's that. Like, what was it? Like 18th century, whatever. No.
A prince.
Super pale people. Like, you should not be out in the sun. And then now, like, if you're tanned, right? What was it? 2000, you should be super, super thin. Now it's like your ass should be like I don't know what, disproportional, like for what women think that men want.
And we're so simple. We just want symmetry. Symmetry. That's all we want. We want symmetrical faces and bodies. That's it.
Youth and symmetry. And that is the golden ratio, right? The Fibonacci. Like, symmetry is sought after, but also what I don't know if you knew this, but you know the proportions of a woman's. Okay, let's be clear here. Let's do not go into body discussion. But
there's also different body types in women.
Yes.
The body shapes.
Yes. It's not about the shapes.
Yeah.
It's not about the weight, the shapes, how tall she is or short she is. None of that. But the ratios.
Okay.
Let's go into math. 1.6 is the golden ratio, and there's actual research done on this. I do not have any sources right now because I can't sleeper if I can't remember them, but ratios of a woman's body, the ratio between chest, waist, hip, and ass, also the angles of it, what is actually the most attractive biologically, subconsciously, that men might not be aware of, and also hips. Childbearing hips.
Exactly. But we're laughing at that. But that's exactly what men go for, because we are biologically tuned and attuned to recognize, oh, okay, she has strong childbearing hips. That means she'll give a healthier child. Sorry.
Not
ladies.
healthier child per se, but she
the
can bear
the head can fit through her pelvis.
She will not like die and break when giving birth.
Yeah.
Anyhow, the trend. I was at the trend.
Yeah.
So there are some eternal factors, like eternal, quote unquote, eternal biological factors that are attractive to men and women. And also women's attractions towards men tend to shift and change during their menstrual cycle.
Exactly.
So that's what I was getting at, where I was like, do women actually know what they want over time?
Yeah.
It's not about having a type. It's not about waiting for the one. It's about actually core values, like who am I? What do I need? What do I want? What direction in life do I want to move in? It doesn't have to be super clear, specified as a SMART goal or whatever, but at least to a core extent, and to identify your core values, the core of who you are. That is more than 90% of people. If you do that, you're way ahead already. And that, stemming back from also the childhood and self-worth, like everybody has inherent worth, yes, but one of the major problems and issues in society and in young women today, stemming from, I don't know, like magazines, photoshopped, retouched influencers now on Instagram, and I don't have like the other apps and like old school like that, but on Instagram, like look at all those like beautiful supermodel influencers, right? Young girls today are told like this is, so these things are tied into one another. They're not untrue.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it puts so much pressure on women. So they might think then, oh, I don't actually have to invest in myself more than my looks and just look pretty and, you know, sit here and then Mr. Right will come by. So the actual self-worth, which is instilled from childhood, from caregivers, in a girl's case, in a woman's case, from her father or father figure, the inherent self-worth then translates into the sexual, you said like sexual market value,
right.
Inherent value, sexual market value, into that value, because then she will value the sacredness of the person that she is, having this womb and this holy, sacred place that gives birth to life, and not let anybody in. Like,
And when you say this, I cannot help but not think of all these spiritual women who are on a tangent about being so like, the womb is sacred. The womb should be kept secured, loved, praising the womb, vagina art, all yoni purging, all these absurd practices.
Yoni purging? Is that a new thing?
We'll go into that.
I've heard yoni steaming, but
yoni steaming too. Yeah, yoni puja and like these stuff. And imagine the irony of this: those same women having slept with a bunch of guys.
Oh gosh.
So
fragmented, like complete.
Yeah, right. Compensation too. Gosh. Compensating. So telling other women, go cleanse your vagina. Cleanse it from what?
Exactly.
Because you make the choice to do either this, spread your legs, or keep them closed. If you happened to have slept with so many guys that you literally cannot pair bond, and women lose the ability to pair bond the more men they sleep with, then no amount of purging is going to change that. No amount of redemption, no amount of sin cleansing is going to change that. That's a biological fact, and I wish it were different. I wish, believe me.
When you say this, just to clarify, a lot of sexual partners lose the ability to pair bond. What does that mean?
Here's what that means. It means having the ability to form a lasting bond and partnership and sustain a family without the need to seek something external, something out of it, as per nature.
Yeah. Okay.
So, because, and again, to whoever is listening to this is perfectly explained by Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University. Us as humans, as Homo sapiens, we stand in between of two types of species, mammalian species, and also birds. That's pair bonding species, wolves, and that's tournament species. For example, gorillas, bonobos. So we are in between.
Okay.
That's why we are so unique and special. And our ability to pair bond, we are different because we're highly intelligent. We're the most intelligent mammals in the world. So for us to actually be able to sustain relationship and pair bond with each other, we need to understand that what that means is both the man and the woman adjusting their mating strategies. For the woman, for her to be able to pair bond and be in a healthy relationship, she will need to sacrifice her or optimize her hypergamy. Which means she says, I choose you as the guy, you're my guy, and I'm your woman. You're my man, I'm your woman. I'm going to willfully and naturally, not forcefully, choose you, and I will no longer seek, because I'm attuned totally and fully with you being my man and us having this thing that we want. So she optimizes her hypergamy. She doesn't engage in open hypergamy. She's not with that man, and then when better guy comes, she's gone. No. And what the man does, ideally, is he sacrifices his mating strategy, which is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. So he doesn't fuck around either. Because he now has a different purpose in that woman's life. And if they have a child, he can't fuck around. because that jeopardizes the child.
Yeah. Jeopardizes the family unit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So both have to make, I don't like the word compromises, but I'm going to use it for lack of a better word. And I don't mind the word, but you don't have to sacrifice anything if you're already that.
Exactly.
If you're that person, fully aligned,
Yeah.
hey, I want it, this is who I am,
There's
no sacrifice. There is no optimism. There's no bad ill feelings.
No.
You are that person and this is your life goal. That's what pair bonding is. That ability to knowingly, willfully, fully, authentically optimize your being, coexist and remain, and be inseparable. Because it is the richest of families in the world that are ones that kept and stayed together. The wealthiest, I would say, rather than richest. It is the most powerful people in the world that are healthy unions. Because if you can't break the union, no one can. If the state can't break it, no one can.
Yeah, but that also means that both parties need to be fully on board. And
Absolutely.
like really and not.
Absolutely.
What is the term for that? Oh, gosh.
Subscom.
Never mind. Never mind. But that means that both parties need to be fully on board. And that is where today's culture, today's trends of 6 foot, blah, blah, blah.
Idealism.
Checkbox idealism, illusion, fantasy.
Because if you can't see it in your immediate vicinity, then it doesn't exist.
Well, in a sense, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also, I think, this is for both sexes, actually. Not just women. Because you said something. Someone needs to give up on their nature. But what if...
Not nature.
No?
Mating strategy.
Mating strategy. All right. Okay.
Because it is in your nature to... Again, we are human.
Mm-hmm.
We are highly intelligent. We have the ability to attune,
yes,
adjust, change, evolve, transcend.
Yeah, and that is thanks to our prefrontal cortex and then ultimately neocortex, and that's the newest part of the brain. It's actually the thinking brain, where that is what separates us. We say, oh, you have said it, we're animals. Where I say, yeah, but no. Because animals go on instinct. We do that too. But if those instincts, quote unquote instincts, or I would prefer to say how we are wired in our nervous system and our conditioning from birth up until any given moment when you meet a person or whatever. If that is wrongly wired, imagine the electricity in a house. If some neighbor who's, he's a plumber, was like, yeah, I can do electricity too. Yeah, I've done it a few times. What's the harm? And then he does the electricity. Then each day, you're kind of, okay, if I turn the lights on, her house might burn down. Like, I don't actually know, right? To then actually hire. You can do the work yourself, but then you need to know enough about electricity, or you can hire somebody who comes and rewires the house.
Exactly.
That requires pause, reflect. Wait, once again, how do I decondition from something? And that happens in relationship because we are relational beings. So trauma can be whatever. It doesn't have to be like, the big T, like, car accident, the big things. It can be small things like parents constantly neglecting you or just invalidating somebody for whatever. I'm not going to go into details. But deconditioning from that, we do in relationship as well. So we're not islands. I think many people today, if somebody does not meet that criteria or checking those boxes, we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Absolutely.
Because what is
because we don't see allies in other people.
Exactly.
We don't see the potential and the potentiality of any kind of relationship developing. We see
the other. How can we harm somebody? We see them as separate from ourselves. We depersonalize them. You said 6 feet, 6 figures, 6 inches, whatever, X, Y, Z.
The number of the beast.
Whatever, X, Y, Z. If this person does not match that, that's the other. Not. See, to really invest in a relationship, is firstly to invest in yourself, yes, but also into the other, and that being mutual.
That's it's how do you say that? It's a renewable source. It's a constantly renewable source. You invest, the gift keeps giving.
Yes.
But that's not why you're doing it.
No, because you want to.
Exactly.
That is the thing. You said that earlier, like, oh, we had this example of meeting the person's needs. It's not about meeting every need and accommodating and, gosh, I forgot the term again. But there is a term for this. When you, like confirmation bias-ish, like if somebody has the issue and you like put a Band-Aid on it. In a relationship, if two people actually want to be there, there's gonna be some ugly fucking shit coming up. Like the ugliest.
Oh, yeah.
Like unimaginable ugly shit coming up. Because that is what it does. Because we get hurt as individuals in relationship, like as humans, but we also heal in them. Not to saying that we're like, also like that we need to heal, but that is where this comes up in these intimate relationships. That need, what is a big exclamation mark here? For the both people not to shy away from the ugliest parts of themselves and the other. That's what people tend to do today because, oh, it's much more pleasurable, tongue tie, help me out. What was
pleasurable?
Thank you. To seek, dopamine hits somewhere else. Oh, the anticipation, maybe that person over there, or maybe, wait,
It's always around the corner. It's never here now. It's somewhere else, sometime else, someplace else, someone else.
Exactly. But also choosing that person every day. Like if two people come into union with each other, and you mentioned these like unbreakable bonds, like
I think every bond is unbreakable. I think you can never actually detach from something willingly, because that's a normal, authentic process that you have nothing to do with, because you cannot will yourself to detach from someone.
No, of course
it just
not.
happens. It's you've suffered enough or whatever needed to happen to you, and you just say, hey, I can no longer hold this bond, and that realization just happens automatically. That the non-attachment happens automatically. But I don't think we can voluntarily end bonds, because what needs to happen is a full and authentic realization and understanding that, hey, this is really not in my interest. This is killing me. Therefore, I can let it go.
In what sense you mean? Like
in the sense of human relationships,
okay,
in sense of understanding if someone is harmful or not to us, and to be able to detach in a most pleasant, healthy way. You owe no one anything by very nature of your existence, but you choose to show up. You choose to be there. But like I said to you a few days ago, if there is a space that we've co-created, and I'm alone in that space, I'm gonna leave that space. Because I don't want to be in that space alone. That space is meant for two. So I'm going to take myself out and I'm going to do whatever I need to do. So we can't just have that ability to, I'm just going to block this person and everything's going to be okay. No, that's means to an end. But if I'm fully aligned and if I know that needs to happen for me, it's a natural process that actually has almost no emotional correlation to that. I experience joy. I experience relief.
So what would you say then for people who have faulty electrical wiring, or not faulty? Oh, wait. I need to rephrase that because it's not faulty, but I was actually considering electrical, who have patterns, conditioning, experiences of perhaps let me rephrase this again. How can you be certain and know, okay, I'm fully aligned with this because this is, you said, like hurting, it's a threat to my existence, or you phrase it very extremist in a sense. But how can you then discern, is that a trauma response of yours that is so deep that it's actually you escaping, avoiding that situation because you don't want to meet that person or yourself in that? Or can you actually distinguish it to be your full, authentic, innate core essence, presence with all of that you are? How do you distinguish the two?
I would say just observe my reaction. just observe the process and be aware of the process. And the very observation of that is the change. The very awareness is the change. So I know there is a knowing and an understanding of exactly as is. No definitions, no measurements, no tools, no comparisons. I simply observe what happens. And it is extreme. It's so clear that there is no even a way to describe this, because I guess people would say nirvana or whatever kind of state. But there is a full alignment and understanding as to what is going on. So I look at myself in this setting. I look at how I respond, not comparing to how I responded yesterday or how I could have responded, how I want to respond, how I do respond and how I did respond. And that in itself is the process in which I learn about myself. And that in itself is helping and healing and everything it should be.
So what would you say to people that maybe have not exercised this ability to, what's your tip to all the men out there or women? How do you then, because we speak of observing oneself. Yeah, but there's no blueprint to that. There is no blueprint. And I can't tell anyone, sit and observe yourself. Oh, that one. Just sit with yourself. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Be yourself. Be yourself. Observe yourself. Sit and breathe and focus on your breathing. Yeah. That's, again, a means to an end. Yeah. This is the one thing that no one can teach you. You can watch and listen to Alan Watts. You can watch and listen to Jiddu Krishnamurti. You can do whatever. And you can have that moment of bliss and clarity. I like to say moment of clarity. But unless you experience that on your own, and that's the thing, those moments come when you need them, not when you want them, not when you go and breathe and meditate for 10 hours in the woods and then everything will come to you. Because then you seek them maybe. Exactly. And it comes when you don't seek it in the sense of the clarity, full clarity. Yeah, and there's a danger in that too. It comes when you don't seek it. So then the counterintuitive programming is, I just need to not seek it then and it will come. The brain is very tricky like that. The ego loves that kind of, the more information you give the ego, the more it fortifies itself. And there is no logical explanation to this, to knowing oneself. There is no mechanism, psychological approach, measurement, empirical research, whatnot. Only you can get to know yourself. Would you say that you get to know yourself and you explore yourself through relationship to the other? Absolutely. And not just through the other, through everything. Well, yes, but if in the context of relationship now. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because if we are in a sense mirrors to each other, not mirrors little in the literal sense, but we mirror each other and the behavior, and certain responses emerge through the responses of the other, and it's much easier to be alone than to be with another person. Yes. But could it also then be true that you get to know thyself through the other? Yes, of course. And how you will know that you're getting to know yourself, and this is a very fascinating thing this just came to me now, is that you'll subconsciously do what these people are doing. You will absorb their habits or their speech patterns, or maybe a quirk that they have or something that they do. You will change. You always change. And in relationships, you always change. You're never the same. So whenever someone tells you you've changed, it's like, oh, you haven't? Yeah, you haven't? You haven't changed? Oh gosh, if I were the same person, well, did we say that earlier today? I'm not the same person I was 2 seconds ago. Well, okay. Let's not get definitions from the DSM-6 here, right? But I agree on that. Because if we were the same people we were a year ago, a week ago, yesterday, some fundamental things are still a red thread of the person that you are. It's not everything cannot change because you still have your DNA, you still have your heart that's beating. But in a sense, yes, we are changing, and everything is always changing. And that is the only constant. So in relationship to others, if that person, a person in this case, be it whoever, but if that person also changes constantly and you change constantly, the ideal would be a constant evolvement and change together, in a sense.
And that is where people need to accept that not recognizing the other is normal. Not following a pattern is normal. Because then a pattern will repeat itself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see the same person every day, that will also be boring. If they have the same habits, it's boring. However, if you get used to this person acting the same way and then acts out of pattern, you'll get alert.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she says this differently. Something is different. And we have an instinctive response to patterns being out of place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to understand...
That is human nature.
Exactly. To understand when that de-patterning is a consequence of growth and when it's the consequence of something else is crucial in relationships.
But how do you know that then? How does that other person
You
then...
inquire.
Yeah.
You inquire.
Yeah.
If I know always when someone has to hide something from me. Always.
Yeah.
Always, at all times, every time. It's my choice to either go into that with the person or to just leave it. Okay, this relationship might not be that important to me. I'll leave it. Because by the very perception of that, I've changed. Everything has changed because I perceived something.
All right.
Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, you mentioned consciousness earlier. What is consciousness and what is perception? And who is the observer of that perceived perception? And how do you interpret that? Through which filters and what nervous system reaction that gives you signals back to the brain of what you perceive, which can also be something else. If that is a brain twister, what I mean by that is, do trust your intuition and instinct like at all times, but also question that as well, because it is so interesting how in these, between a man and a woman, then like an intimate relationship anyways, the friends as well, of course, but in intimate encounters with people, that is where it is most crucial to be on one's A game, in a sense. Of course, to relax as a woman in her feminine essence, to be okay, you can hold space for me and I can bloom and sing and be a little bit, I won't say chaotic, but it's what? But it's a containment, and that is what freedom is.
Exactly, because freedom does not exist without its containment and container.
Exactly. But that is so important.
Because one implies the other. One implies the other.
Yes, of course.
And that is the importance of having a masculine frame and a woman walking into it and embracing it.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't use the term walking into it. I would actually say relax into it.
Yeah, submitting to it.
Okay, you can use that term. But yeah, in a sense, submit. It is submitting.
It is submitting.
But I'm coming from, once again, a feminine viewpoint of this. Relax. I am in my, I can relax in my body.
Me. Just
doesn't mean that I become a blob. No.
Yeah.
But it means that I can actually feel empowered, that I have protection in the world. Not that I need protection, but, let's be honest, girls, how many of us feel super safe going out in the middle of the night, alone? Oh, yeah. That's just one example. One example.
And it's a very good example.
Or carrying the burdens of the whole world on our shoulders. I've done that. Tell me. I'm telling you. I don't actually have to tell you, but I don't wish for any woman out there ever to have to experience that. It is not fun. But it also taught me. I had to learn the hard way. To actually, I'm going to embrace myself, all of it, whatever you jokingly said, crazy, fine, that's fine. But that is the chaotic, feminine nature of emotion. And to have the containment, because I say containment of a masculine man that can hold that is transforming and expansive in ways that then in that case for me, in that union would mean that the two people in there, me, somebody else, it would become so much more than just, this is my boyfriend or whatever. was it Nietzsche who said that? The relationship, that the outcome or the goal of the two coming together becomes larger than the two individuals by themselves, or something like that. This is
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
what a
Yes.
bad paraphrasing.
No, I understood it. It's a chapter from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It's a chapter on marriage. It's a part on marriage. Yes, exactly. The two come together to create something larger than themselves.
Thank you. Eloquently.
Yeah.
Thank you. When both can be in their essence and nobody impedes on the other's freedom, but also with choosing each other and choosing to stay in that discomfort, because growth, the hallmark of actually growth and expansion is confusion and discomfort. But I'm not saying like stay in abusive relationships or stay like for any price or whatever, but stay in that feeling with yourself. And
observe yourself.
Yes, observe yourself. Move away, come back.
Yeah.
But stay with that.
And again, as I like to say, there's nowhere for you to be. Stay. There's no. Where is that? That's a place you've created. Again, it's a coping mechanism. If you're uncomfortable, where you're going is something you've created, thinking that that's shelter.
Yeah.
There is no safety. Because you're just. What are you hiding from? What are you safe from? When it's cold, you want to be safe, and you seek warmth. You need stimulus. You need external stimulus to actually respond to it. Nothing else is as important as that. So all of our constant workings of the mind to constantly prepare us for the future that will never come is just such a wastage of energy.
Well,
Just, focus on what you have now. You're warm, outside is cold. You're hungry, eat. That's it.
yeah, because the future will be another now. So if you miss the now and the next now, you will miss the future.
Yeah.
But were you referring to what I said about staying, or what was it?
Staying. Because where else are you going to go?
Yeah.
Where else are you going to go?
But that's what
Where else are you going to go?
See, it's the charm.
Yeah.
In real time, an example of communicating, but we comprehend each other? Oh, wait, so we need to clarify. What do you mean? And to then speak the same language and to understand each other, to then be able to move forward in some direction together, not necessarily hand in hand, but we can move separately, but together, but to move forward. And I think for the feminine woman, at least, for some reason I see it in circles, like it's like circle movement. And then if a masculine man comes by, and if they meet, or when they meet rather, and choose each other, that gives her leadership, direction, and she infuses the man, nurtures.
Blows wind into his sails.
Well, vice versa, I'd say. Vice versa. That is the complement. They give each other, or we give each other, we humans, we give each other the inherent things that we need and lack and have more or less of. It's not black or white or
you can't
this or
be
that.
all that.
No,
you can't be all that.
Nobody is. It's a growth process, right? Nobody's done. Nobody's healed. Nobody is. Oh, I'm ready for that relationship now. Or
right.
I have.
You can never be ready because you always are ready.
Exactly.
That's
and
the
you
thing.
can never heal enough because inherently nothing's wrong with you. But also look into yourself and
right.
work on the parts.
Yeah, because if you ask the question, the answer will come and be very obvious.
Exactly.
You might not like it.
No, and oftentimes it's actually in relationship again, because a person can, do all the yoga in the world and all the meditations and go to the gym and or escape into alcohol or workaholism or anything, insert anything. But in essence, in intimate relationship, the whole universe or multiverses actually, but anyways, of existence are portrayed, because the smallest of action, the look a person gives another, or a touch, or just the shift of energy in each and between, quantum entanglement. Let's not get into quantum. It is true. It's real.
Yeah.
So the whole of our existence actually is also mirrored into and of these relationships. And that is why it's so important to not on the... I've experienced this so many times where I actually truly believe like, yep, this is like this, or this is the shift. Where you taught me, but you helped me remember, rather, ask. And it's so funny because I actually, like, I ask why all the time. But then in relation to a man, I just don't ask. Like, and then that made me question myself. Not question myself, but inquire rather. But without you, that mirror there, that would never have happened. And, sometimes that needs to go several times, several layers, new level, new devil. It's like a video game. But that is the fun of it. That is the process. Life cannot always be happy. Like, I'm not waiting for somebody to fulfill my happiness.
Of course. That's a losing game.
Exactly. But that is life, I think. Or I don't think it's life. Yeah, I caught myself. I say I think all the time. That's also patterning. Because most of the things I said when I said I think, I actually feel them in my body.
Of course. And there is a resonance of reason and logic with all the rest of your emotion, call it whatnot. Yeah. It's a union rather than a separation.
Yeah.
And again, that plays into and my final word on that will be that even though we perceive reality differently, that for women it's instinct, emotion, reason, and for men it's instinct, reason, emotion.
There's a difference between intuition and instinct.
That's the same.
Yeah,
and when we observe that reason is not actually to be divorced from emotion, but to consider them parts of a whole,
mm-hmm.
that changes everything.
Aren't we all just parts of a whole?
Yeah,
exactly.
Jasmina, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. First time, so did you pop my cherry?
You did great.
Thank you.
You did great. And once again, thank you. And thank you to anyone who's listening or watching.
Yeah, we actually don't know if this camera is working with us or against us. And this fire is working against us now.
It's so like warm. A sauna in here. So, it's been 3 hours now.
Oh God.
So, thank you, everyone, and see you in the next episode.
We got caught in the time vortex again.
Yes, we did.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.